ecosystem in terms of solutions that can be applied, of course, to the county. And again, with that approach, we see socio-economic benefits trickling down to startups and innovators in Kenya as well as in the region. So I will have a couple of keynotes, then probably we can have a panel, then we'll be able to get one or two presentations in terms of use cases around smart city from one of our startups. So it is my honor and pleasure to start us off with a keynote from CCO Smart Nairobi, Chief Tyrus Njoroge. Karibu sana. He's wearing a very nice suit.
Thank you. Good morning. You know, last week I was in a workshop for mobility around Nairobi, and so one of the presenters came and stood around. He looked around and realized he was the only one in a tie. And so he just yanked his tie and just threw it away. So I'm wondering whether I'm a maverick enough, because I'm looking around and I'm the only one in a tie. So I don't know whether I start with the same stunt. Otherwise, I have a brief speech. I'm usually not so good in speeches, but this is very important for me. So all protocols observed, good morning. I'm happy to join in the inaugural Innovate Nairobi Tech Week. I take the opportunity to congratulate my colleague, Victor, for putting together such a platform. In the existence of Nairobi City County, this has never happened before, and we are very grateful to bring together all the players in this industry to showcase and also interact. And I'm happy. Yesterday I saw on LinkedIn that this is already bearing fruits, bringing together the persons who have the tech and the persons who need the tech. We have already seen people buying some of this tech from here, and we are very grateful. So my idea of a smart city is a place whereby everyone's ideas are able to be onboarded for the betterment of the city. Ours is purely about ensuring that everything we do is data-driven. Nairobi is becoming one of the fastest growing cities. And to put this in perspective, Nairobi will have a population of 10.5 million people in 2050, from the current 5.2 million. This is the largest expected percentage growth across the top 10 cities in Africa, expected to have over 10 million residents by 2050. It is actually a 102% growth rate for Nairobi. Those that come near are coming in at around 80%. Such growth, while providing immense opportunities for our businesses, also creates challenges in terms of service delivery. From as early as today, we must ensure the improvement of service delivery across the city and get the technology to do it. When thinking about the word smart cities, I think about it in terms of a complex concept that describes cities whose innovative processes are used to improve the living standards of the inhabitants and the economic and environmental development. The development of a smart city calls for the creation of a participatory government where different actors contribute towards sustainable growth. This is critical because it makes the infrastructure components and service more intelligent, more interconnected, and efficient, hence improving social learning and citizen engagement. Smartness is not just about installing digital interfaces in traditional infrastructure or streamlining city operations. It is also about using technology and data purposefully to make better decisions and deliver a better quality of life. In such a participatory environment, the collaboration between actors is key in fostering the exchange of knowledge and skills and generating improved service delivery, where smartness of the city is linked to the humanistic aspect. This humanistic aspect is one thing that we should always remember. I was having a discussion with some people who are really interested in digitizing the matatu industry. And this is one of the best things that you can actually think of. Because the other thing that we need to be very careful about is to ensure that technology is actually used to reduce the social and economic divide across the nation, and that technology is not used to increase the same divide. If we are not careful, that can happen. And so we have to ensure that we have the humanistic aspect in each and everything that we do towards the creation of a smart city. So more comprehensive real-time data gives agencies the ability to watch events as they unfold, understand how demand patterns are changing, and respond with faster and lower cost solutions for the betterment of everyone's lives. In the past, city leaders thought that smart technologies are tools that improve efficiency from behind the scenes. However, today technology is injected directly into the lives of residents. Smartphones have become the keys to the city. I'm reading from a smartphone. Placing instant information concerning traffic, health, and payment for services into millions of hands. For smart cities to work, 3 layers must work together. The first, of course, is the technology base, which includes a critical mass of smartphones and sensors connected by high-speed communication networks. The second layer consists of specific applications that are going to translate raw data into alerts, insights, and action. And this is where technology providers and startups come in. The third layer, and in the first layer, of course, I have to thank partners like Liquid Telecom, who have actually done quite a bit of work in laying down the infrastructure that is going to be used for smart cities. The third layer, of course, is the usage by the city. Applications will only succeed when they are widely adopted and manage to change behavior. Because again, that is all that we hope technology to be able to help us to do. I was having a conversation right now out there, and someone said that we have turned the CBD into a big parking for matatus and the likes. And maybe if we just change people's behaviors of that, I have to rush to a certain place for me to get a vehicle, and I can just stand and know that there's a route that is passing by there. Those behavioral changes are going to be very important for a smart city. In his speech during the opening ceremony on Monday, His Excellency Governor Sakaja Arthur Johnson stated that the City County of Nairobi would work with anyone who provides a solution for easing traffic congestion across the city. Over time, the governor has repeated that in Nairobi, we want to channel the innovations of our young people towards aspects that improve various spheres of life. It is not innovation for the sake of innovation. Instead, the aim should always be moving towards a smart city that understands the pain points of the residents of Nairobi. Towards this, we are committed to work with different levels of partners to improve the delivery of services for the residents. And we are committed to absorb as many technologies as possible that address the issues of Nairobians. Among others, we are working towards the development of an integrated hospital management system, the improvement of automation in our parking and traffic congestion management, using digitization to not only promote order, but also dignity of informal traders, and creating more opportunities for them, and improving the experiences of Nairobians when consuming services in Nairobi. Further, we are deploying applications such as the early warning application, which will be used in the informal settlements to give the city a view of any deficiencies in critical nutrients that are necessary for people's health, hence taking preventive action. This is combined with a food system application that will map our markets and their sources of products. This way, we will promote the visibility of these markets and can identify opportunities for suppliers to remedy any deficiencies that we identify within these markets. Finally, I want to put it across to everyone in this room that innovation is not the privilege of a few. It is a duty for all of us to be innovative and provide solutions for the city. His Excellency Governor Sakaja often reminds us that Kenya is among the most receptive societies for technology. If over 10 years ago, we trusted technology with our money through M-Pesa, where such mobile money services were not common across the globe, then you can be assured that whatever technology we put in the hands of Nairobians to improve services, they will consume. The innovation and digital economy sector assures you that we will continue in as much as possible to work with everyone to serve Nairobians. Hence, this is a rallying call to all of us to be active players in providing solutions to the people of Nairobi. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief Tyrus, for giving the context and providing leadership and giving a roadmap of sorts in terms of what is expected of the county government of Nairobi. So we are talking about smart city solutions, the role of technology in improving service delivery. I think as Chief Tyrus has indicated, Nairobi County is open and seeks to be able to partner with different innovators who are there, who can be able to provide solutions. And I think one of the objectives of this session is to explore modalities, PPP, public-private partnerships, financing models that can allow some of these innovations to be able to get a home within the county government of Nairobi. Next up on stage is another wonderful chief. She's called Cecilia. She's the Chief Officer for Lands. You know, lands is also a major sector in the county government of Nairobi, but even from an economic perspective. So of course, even for Chief, the question was that she had posed to me is, you know, what am I going to say when it comes to land? I mean, land, what's the correlation between land and innovation? And for me, I think it's very important that we get as many sectors from the county as possible to these types of conversations so that we can be able to appreciate the challenges that lie there in different sectors and explore possibilities of collaboration. So, karibu sana, Chief Cecilia. Maybe she can just give us, you know, a brief of the land sector, the successes that have been there, the challenges that have been there, and possibly maybe as we do the panel session, maybe we can be able to explore different types of innovations or solutions that can be applied within the sector. So without wasting too much time, kindly give a round of applause to Chief Cecilia as she makes her way.
Good mornings, all protocols observed. As you have been told, I'm Cecilia. I'm the Chief of Sarads. I'm a surveyor by profession. And when I was invited on this, I said, even if I may not have much, I can come to learn so that tomorrow I'll have something to say. And that's why I'm here, to take you through a bit of what is LADS, because most of you may ask what is LADS. We have LADS within Nairobi City County, and we have the Ministry of LADS. And particularly, I'm going to address on the services we give to the Nairobians. Nairobi is broad, with a lot of challenges in LAD matters. I don't want to go to the depth of most of the difficult issues, because we have time to address them. We are only 10 months in the office. We are trying to address these issues. And particularly for those who reside in Nairobi, I think you have seen the disorganization we have, but we are trying to organize. And I am sure in the next 2 years, we will be better and Nairobi will be working. Now, the services we offer as the LAD sector or subsector under the Built Environment and Urban Planning, it is purely the survey of the county facilities, the hospitals, the schools, social halls, which have actually been endangered by grabbing, a lot of grabbing, but we are addressing that. We also, as Nairobi County, back in 1979, there were allotments that were done to the Nairobians. We call them the site and service schemes, and also we have some allotted schemes. We had 3 departments that used to do the allocations. We had one that was actually started by the World Bank, and it was housed in our Dadora office, which is in Eastlands, in the Bacchus North sub-county, which holds almost 50,000 properties, and which is actually on manual records. All the property records are manual, and there's a registry that was started then. It was a bit dilapidated, but Through the efforts of our governor, we have been able to renovate it. It's now very modern, with modern backfires, but now what we are lacking is the digitization of the manual records. And as I take you through, I hope somebody will be volunteering to partner with us and support us in the digitization, because that's what we need for Nairobi, particularly on the manual land record. It's causing a lot of disputes because somebody can come and mitigate way and make sure that they remove what is manual wanaweka yao. So that is actually what we are prioritizing now, not much, but to make sure we have digital records where we have some security that such that nobody can be able to access our records and meddle around with them. Apart from the 50,000 records in our Dadora registry, there was also a allocation that was done by our defunct city planning department. As I've stated, there were 3 departments that were doing allocation. For city planning department, we have around 30,000 properties that are also in manual form, and unfortunately, they are not well organized. It is really a challenge to organize them, harmonize them, but we are trying. We feel we are equal to the task, and we are going to do that and make sure they are all titled. For the public facilities, cross-cutting the schools, the health centers, the social halls, the playground, we have allowed 1,000 public facilities, and we are increasing that because we look forward to having around 2,000 records within our land bank, which some are arrived at by surrenders. For those people who do the subdivision, they surrender that land to us. We are also putting a lot of effort to make sure that all what is surrendered is brought into record and kept in custody for future expansion of the public facilities. Also, for all those, they are also in manual form. So actually, our dire need is on digitization of the records. We are also dealing with the valuation of the county properties, that is people within Nairobi. That is not really county allocated. It is all people living within Nairobi, cross-cutting Nairobi county boundaries. The valuation is valuation of those properties to make sure that they are rated. And it is also in manual form. So if I'm also having a manual record here. This is dedicating who you are, but we want to migrate, as he has stated. He's supposed to make sure we migrate now to digital. And for the valuation records as well, they are housed in City Hall. We have a lot of, I would say, over 300, it's over 300, but they are in manual form. And we understand when we are in manual what it means. There are a lot of issues that can go underground, and we are not assured of the transparency. We are not saying we are not, but we are never assured. Because when you're dealing with the manual documents, in the movement, when you are trying to move that record, anything can happen. That's what I'm trying to bring around. So my request is if you can go digital, the better for us, because you're able to check from your laptop or from your phone exactly what is happening, the trace of movement of records. Currently, we are trying to implement the 2019 valuation law. Previously, we were all working at the valuation law that was done in 1982. That is working with the very low values of our properties. And as you know, Kenya has grown, it has developed, and the values are now, they have appreciated. And we are in the process of implementing the 2019 valuation law, but it is faced with the future ages because we have around 6,500 objections for people who are not embracing the 2019 valuation law because they claim the values are very high. But I think that is the way we need to go to make sure this country moves forward. And we are in the process of implementing the valuation court to address the 6,000 objections. And we hope by the time we are there, some will have withdrawn so that we have lesser to address. In after the valuation, when we do the valuation, we transfer that data to revenue. And the revenue is now when it is converted to rate. At least with our technical team, the rates we are not very much manual because I'm sure most of you have been able to access their valuation, their rate accounts through the mobiles, through the laptops, or online in the comfort in your house. So at least at the end product, we are somewhere, and we hope that you'll be 100% achieve that, by the time we are realizing the total implementation of the 2019 valuation law. However, we are faced with a few challenges because we are not able to map Nairobi. Currently, the datable database is only covering around 168 from the information we have. And when you look at Nairobi, that is very, very few numbers. And we are looking to covering we are looking forward to at least making sure that our valuation assets reaches to 500 on the minimum. Because our neighboring Uganda country, they are having 383, and we were ahead of them. I don't know where we lost the track, but we are looking forward to making sure that we bypass that. And that is so far where we are with our records. And we have several achievements. For all these properties I've talked about, we are the same people who do the titling. The titling, we do it in conjunction with the Ministry of Lands, because that is a national government function. And titles, we are somehow would say we are ahead. Using our manual documents, ownership documents, we are able to capture them through the support of the Ministry of Lands, because then they are more digital, and we are now in the ADISASA system. Once we capture those records, we do the printing of our leases digitally under the assistance of the Ministry of Lands. But once we do those leases, they come back to our client for signing, for sealing by the county government. And that captured data, we use it now for processing of the titles. It's a two-way process. We have the leases, we have the titles. That one at least we do digitally, but one we are supported by the Ministry of Lands. So what we do is partially we convert our manual records to digital to enable the processing of leases. So at least for the other society has supported us, and we say that one, somehow we are almost now 50% achieving that. But you see, we are relying on the Ministry of Lands. If the Ministry of Lands today closes their doors and says, we will not give you those services, we go back to manual. That is why we do very few leases, because when you do manual, I would say you manage at least 20 leases per day because of the process of printing, signing. But currently, when you're using ADISASA, we are able to do to the tune of 200 leases a day. And capturing, where we have around 10 officers who handle this, they are able to capture even to a tune of 150 documents a day. So I think, as I state here, this is where you realize the Nairobi County needs support, and support in digitization, and also if we can get a support in implementing our own titling system, where we have a manual printer, a digital printer, and the software and the hardware to do the capturing of the data to cope with the volume in the Ministry of Lands, so that when we do our leases from the county, we can now just be able to forward that digital data for printing of titles. Our officer, the chief officer who was seated here, who was actually here before me, is trying to see whether how we can integrate that. The other thing is how we manage to do the capturing of our data, that is the public facilities. We are now more advanced when it comes to survey process. We are using the RTK, that is the GPS-based systems, the handheld GPS, and the RTK for the surveying process, whereby the process is not so manual. Once we download that data, we just link with the Ministry of Lands, our Director of Survey, and we're able to process our survey very fast. But our major challenge is now handling what we survey is the records, the ownership records. That's our major challenge. Otherwise, with the other processes of survey, that one we are okay. With the leases, we are not okay, because we are relying on the Ministry of Lands. And if we are supported, I think we would move really fast to make sure we title Nairobi, because currently we are only at 11% titled for the Nairobi schemes. And that is a very, very little percentage. We look forward that if we can be supported, we could be able to say the 80% properties are all titled, and we empower Nairobians, and we also reduce the litigations. And we also have a department in GIS, where GIS experts work in collaboration with our chief officer, Smart Nairobi. We are trying to make sure that we integrate most of the county departments who are using the cadastre. The cadastre, we get it from the Ministry of Lands. That's the digital survey plans. We actually buy from the Ministry of Roads because we are not integrated. There's no, so we buy from them. And that is the database we want now to integrate with other departments so that if it's the Department of Roads, they can be able to access our data for the use. If it's the Department of Environment, they can also be able, we want to have the layers, the different layers as per the departments. If it's the Ministry of Health, if we want to know their facilities, the status they are in, that is where we want to be. But we need a lot of support in the software and hardware because we are at the primary stage. And I think that's where we are so far with the issue of LADs in Nairobi. We are also looking forward to harmonizing and regularizing. Nairobi is a bit disorganized. When you move to Eastland, you get there a lot of developments. They are not titled, they are not planned, because I think the Nairobians moved ahead of us. They have settled, they have built, but they don't have documents. They are staying with certificates. And this is because of the earlier land buying companies that didn't provide these services. We want to engage them, bring them on board, so that once we are able to regularize these, plan them, and title them, we are going to expand and put them in our valuation loan and then convert it to rateable values, which is going to expand our rateable database. And we feel that is where we should go so that we also increase the revenue for Nairobi County, because rates is actually what gives us the biggest percentage of revenue of Nairobi, and we want to increase it by taking that action. And with much ado, I think that's what I can take you about Nairobi. I wait for your questions. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Chief Cecilia. I think she's done very well in terms of articulating the successes and challenges and opportunities that are there for innovators to be able to support the county government of Nairobi within the land sector. And I think as she was making her remarks, the question that came to mind was, is there a way in which you can be able to do a build lease model of sorts where you can be able to come build a system, maybe say for example, that can be able to support leasing the leases that she was talking about, so that we can maybe move from processing 20 leases a day to 200, and find a way in which you can be able to collect revenue, as a service provider, either as a percentage of something. So, I mean, interesting stuff to be able to just explore. We have our Chief Officer for Mobility who is on his way. Probably can just be able to join later on during the panel. So, I would want next up to invite Rhoda Murimi, a service designer at Marathon XP, just to be able to, again, give us almost like a use case of a solution that probably would be applicable around customer service experience. If I don't get it right, probably she can be able to give us more details, but again, it's just a simple use case of a solution for smart city. So again, smart city, we have different solutions that can be able to be applied all the way from transport, lands, up to customer service. So karibu sana, Rhoda, a hand of applause to her. Makofi kwake.
Thanks, Victor. Good morning. My name is Rhoda Murimi. Like Victor said, I'm a service designer at Marathon XP, all protocols observed. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the human aspects of smart cities. And I'll walk you through how we focus by designing for the people. So, along with our partners, we have been involved in several smart city projects around the world. We have covered North America, Africa, and have gone as far as Australia. So for desert community in Arizona, we built an intelligent operations platform that took sensors across the community, monitoring soil moisture, water pumps, water usage and electricity usage. And for this work, we were runners-up for the IBM Beacon Award. This is an innovation award that is awarded by IBM. And then in Toronto, that's in Canada, we were involved in one of the largest city rejuvenation projects. We helped the city build, an intelligent operations center and a community platform that was called the Blue Edge. This time around, we won the IBM Beacon Award. Closer home, in Africa, we helped the city of Johannesburg set up a platform through which citizens could interact with their city to report on water-based issues like burst pipes, pollution, this kind of problems that you would find in most cities. And here in Kenya, I'm sure you're wondering if we've done projects locally. Here in Kenya, we helped Oxfam to map out water points in northern Kenya and southern Ethiopia so that they could predict drought. Again, for this year, we also won the IBM award. And then in Dubai, we worked on a citizens portal that brought together a variety of transport-related services. So across all these projects, the focus has been collecting data from sensors and systems to help the city operate better and to help citizens interact with their city. Now I'd like us to think about Nairobi. How might a city deliver all the services it needs to deliver in a way that earns public trust? How would we do this for Nairobi? And what we want is to offer citizens pleasant service delivery, ensure that they feel heard, valued, and are confident as they interact with the city. We all know that usually citizens' interactions with the government are not the most pleasant, right? So we want to ensure that we make these experiences pleasant and that the citizens feel heard and confident. And this is how we would do it. So this is a complex process, but if you were to narrow it down to 5 steps, this is how we would do it. We begin by speaking to the people, both the citizens and the county staff. Public service, like any other service, is a double-edged, it's a two-faced coin, right? We have the citizens who experience the service, and we also have the service providers, whether it's the county staff or even the garbage collection companies, the utility companies, to mention but a few. After speaking to people, we zoom out and look at the systems that are involved in service delivery. After that, we integrate data across all domains, and then we design a unified platform through which the city and the citizens can communicate. And this results in a more responsive city. We're going to look at these 5 points individually. So, listening to people is a thorough research process, which enables us to deeply understand their needs. We follow a service design methodology, which is the methodology that we use at Marathon. We are service designers, which enables us to design for both citizens and the service providers. And this is a co-creative process. The speakers who've gone before me have spoken about collaboration. So in this endeavor, we would collaborate with the city in an effort to reach diverse populations and staff and service providers to ensure that the data we have is complete and inclusive. In service design, we leave no one behind. We use various research techniques. We conduct day in the life studies. In our lingo, we call them ethnographic studies. We immerse ourselves into the lives of the people that we are trying to understand. We also sometimes conduct field observations, and we even do face-to-face interviews, like what you see on the image. And based on the data that we uncover, we use it to segment citizens based on archetypes, based on behavior. Again, Tyrus, you spoke about behavior earlier. The truth is, no two Nairobi citizens are alike. We all have our different needs, habits. We have different expectations that we have of our city. So it's important to understand the citizens and to group them in those typologies so that we can then design solutions that include everyone. We don't stop at just understanding the citizens. We also visually map these experiences for both the service, the person experiencing the service, and the person providing the service. Let's take an example. Let's say I'm not feeling well and I walk to a county health center, right? We can map my experience from the moment I walk in the door, I go through triage, I see the clinical officer, and all the way to pharmacy. On the other side, we can also map the county health officer's experience. What is the experience when they're serving someone at triage? What's the experience of the clinical officer when he's listening to my complaint of my ailment? What is the experience of the pharmacist that I find? And in our past projects, we have spoken to diverse groups of people, from community health workers in Kangemi, food traders and shopkeepers in Mukuru, professionals in banks and telcos, to mention but a few. We also don't stop at research. We prototype and test our solutions, and we take them all the way to implementation. So by the time we leave a project, we ensure that the solution has germinated, if I could use that terminology. So the service design process that I've just described focuses on a single experience, like the example I gave of the visit to the healthcare facility. However, we know very well that in a county, services are received via interconnected experiences. Cities are complex systems with many intersections. We've just had there's a land division or department at the county. There's the water services, the health sector, education center, etc. All these systems interact in a certain way, and there are various people that are involved in all these domains, right? Therefore, as much as we need to design for these citizens, we also need to zoom out and look at the system and all the interconnectedness that goes into providing that service to ensure we design a positive experience for everyone. So we design interventions at every level of the system, at the strategic level, at the tactical level, and at every level we design interventions. So we've understood our citizens, we've understood the system. The next thing is we know the data to look for, to use. The city has a lot of data, but unless you're able to harness that data to help come up with solutions, the data is not that useful to you, right? And most city journeys will start on one or two domains, mostly the most pressing ones, and then expand from there. So the city, Nairobi now knows its citizens, it understands the system, it has the data. How does all this coalesce into effective service delivery for the people? So the next step is for the city to provide services on one platform through which citizens and the city can communicate with each other. Let's take an example. Suppose you could communicate to the county about challenges in your immediate community. Let's say it's crime, let's say there's a burst sewer pipe. You woke up today and found garbage has been dumped outside your gate. Imagine if you could communicate to Nairobi County just on an app on your phone, and this is an app that's monitored on the back end. The county is able to receive that alert and act on it without needing to talk to your estate chairman, go to your chief. You can directly communicate with your county. Picture like our estate WhatsApp group. All of us are in our WhatsApp groups where we live. Picture such a community, but one where these issues reach the county immediately. They don't need to be discussed in the WhatsApp group for 1 week. The chairman doesn't need to write a letter for the estate members to read and review and then give permission that can be forwarded. On the converse, suppose there's an accident. Let's say a truck is lying on its side at GM Junction. Imagine if the city was to send you a notification, avoid Mombasa Road, there's a truck that's blocking traffic. But over and above, just notifying you about that, the city goes a step further and tells you that you could use, if you're going to Athi River, this is an option. If you're going to Westlands, this is an option you could use. So what we are trying to, we want to help communities interact with their city. We want the city and the people to talk to each other, to ensure that citizens can get updated by the city on the issues that affect them. And now all these steps take us to our destination, which is a city that understands its people, harmonizes the complexity of service delivery, leverages on data, and communicates seamlessly with its citizens. This allows the city to serve all its citizens in a new way that's faster, more organized, and more pleasant for everyone. Pleasant for the people, me and you, who receive the service, and pleasant for the service providers, Tyrus as he serves us, the garbage companies, the utility companies. And I want us to think about how such a city would look like. Let's say a fire breaks out in a market, let's say Gikomba. I think we've had a number of fires at Gikomba. So through the platform that we mentioned, the citizens are able to alert the county via the app. Someone is on the back end, someone is monitoring, and they're able to respond. And to respond not only to come on time, but to also be prepared, right? So the county responds quickly, puts out the fire in minimal time, the damage is minimal. What's the result of this? The result is happy citizens that trust their government. And this public trust, which is what we want, is what helps to foster further engagement on county issues. So in future times when the county calls people to come and discuss issues, people are more responsive because they have seen that their government listens to them and is responsive to them. I think this is a Nairobi that works. The example I've given is one of a disaster, but this process can also be used to harness opportunities. So thank you for your attention. We are Marathon, and we're on a mission to elevate human experiences everywhere. We're happy to have a conversation with you on how we can partner for a human-centered Nairobi. Feel free to visit our booth, and you can also visit our website, marathonxp.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We felt like we were also on a marathon. Maybe switching gears, I would want to now welcome Mr. Ben Roberts, who is the chair. I don't know the long acronym, the other side. Or if you're athletic enough, you can use this side. To chair the next session, which will be a panel discussion where probably we're just going to be able to explore and of course explore areas of collaboration, etc. around smart cities. Then probably I think later on then we can be able to get another presentation in terms of use cases. So I don't know, Ben, if that seat is for you. You should work hard and stand here, but anyway. Karibu sana, Ben, we can just give him a clap.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. So maybe I'll invite the panelists to join. First of all, we have Tyrus from NAIROBI City Council. And also Cecilia from NAIROBI City County. And Rhoda from Marathon XP. That's everybody, Victor, yeah? Victor? Yeah. I think that's everyone for the everyone for the panel. Thank you very much. So yes, welcome everybody this morning. I really much enjoyed the presentations, and I'm also working in, I'm a digital person, but I also like to use manual methods at this type of event, so I've been writing lots in my book too. So everything's written down, lots of points from the presentations, which I hope will be good things to talk about. Yes, my name is Ben Roberts. I'm from Liquid Intelligent Technologies, where I'm Chief of Technology and Innovation. And, you know, I think in many ways I've really been interested in smart cities. And I'll perhaps tell you a bit of background why I grew up in a place called Milton Keynes, which when I first moved there, my parents moved there, I was a baby, but it wasn't a city then. It was some small villages and a lot of fields and farmers and sheep. And then it was designated as a new city, planned as a new city, and architected from the beginning as a new city. So it was actually a sort of special city borough, and it was granted its charter for becoming a city in 2022 by the Queen just before for her Jubilee, just before she passed away. So, having grown up in a city, a completely new city which has been built smart, I've always had a real interest in this area, and I wrote a blog a couple of years ago, and I called it Smart African Cities. But in this, I sort of categorized 3 types of cities when it comes to, you know, the DNA of the city, and gave a few examples from within Africa as well. So type number 1 is, you know, there are really old cities. Cities like London being hundreds of years old, or cities like Rome even being thousands of years old. So these are great examples. If you go to Rome, you'll see a mix of modern buildings and skyscrapers, along with the Colosseum and other things that the Romans built over 2,000 years old. And so that's, I think, the perfect example. So there aren't really any cities like that in the continent of Africa. But there are, another type is this completely new planned city. Konza is a good example. It's a work in progress in Kenya of a new city which is being designated as a technopolis and built as a smart city. There are other privately owned developments here. Tartu City is trying to do something like this. And then even a city like Kigali, although it has been around a lot longer, you know, since I would say what was new Rwanda post 1994, you know, Kigali has completely been redone and effectively is a new city. People love the cleanness of it, but it's starting to get a bit of traffic now, I noticed. But then there are other cities in the world which have exploded in the last 100 years, and perhaps without all that much planning or zoning, but have developed into these very vibrant cities, and Nairobi is one of those, right? So it has been around for 100 years, or a little bit more, but in the last 60 really, since Kenya got independence, Nairobi has evolved very quickly. Other cities in Africa that fit this category are Lagos and Kinshasa, which are much larger. These are what we call mega cities, and really have you know, tens of millions of people, which is a lot bigger in terms of population in Nairobi. But I've been in Nairobi 10 years, and you know, I think before we turn to the panelists, we should probably give, as Nairobians, we should give ourselves a pat on the back. Tyrus said that smart cities are really about different actors contributing to sustainable growth, and I think that is what has happened. I came here in 2013, and a lot of infrastructure had been built, and I came because we acquired a data center, which is now East Africa Data Center, and we acquired the fiber optic network of Kenya Data Networks. Largely, a lot of the buildings in Nairobi were connected to fiber. There was fiber backbone. Nairobi was connected to subsea cables, connected to data centers. So a lot of infrastructure had been built by telecommunications companies, and the government had data centers as well. But in that 10 years, we've actually seen an explosion of applications to solve problems of the city. And perhaps if we look back to what were the problems in 2013, security was a problem. It was just after a terrorist attack in Westgate, and people were feeling nervous if they could be attacked in a place like that. And traffic and mobility is very much, it's always a concern, but it had really got to a breaking point in Nairobi. You could wait 2 hours to get from Mombasa Road into the city. Obvious things that have come about. CCTV and the security system was installed by the government. And really, I know there was an attack on Dusit as well, but we've seen I think a big improvement into the security in Nairobi, and that's something that's extremely important. Then we've seen the development of things like the smart taxis, Uber, Mara Moja, Little Cab being some. But let me tell you, when I first got to Nairobi, you wanted to order a taxi. I didn't have a car of my own. You'd have to call your taxi guy, and he'd say, yeah, I'll be 5 minutes. And then you'd call him a bit later, Uko Wapi, 5 minutes. 2 hours later, he'd come. And if you look like me as well, there was what we call variable pricing, surge pricing, where someone who looked like me would get charged a lot more than someone who looks like most of you. So, so now we've had a proper equalization. You can find transport, public service vehicles as well, by using these apps. We've seen a huge explosion of fiber to the home, a number of providers. Liquid has not done much fiber to the home in Nairobi, but Zuku, Safaricom, and JTL have done large amounts of fiber to the home. And now we're having other ISPs covering Wi-Fi networks, companies like POA, who are building large-scale Wi-Fi networks in Nairobi, as well as small guys, those guys we call the resellers, or who are local ISPs putting up internet in their areas. Even in areas like rubbish collection, we're seeing private companies doing a lot of rubbish collection, sorting out recycling. Companies like Taka Solutions, you can order your rubbish to be collected, they will separate it for you. We've seen pavements being built in the last few years, which has been fantastic, and traffic lights, so the smart traffic lights that are spanning from Prestige Plaza all the way down to the roundabout in a row. This is an important project. But really, I think some things have been tried and not worked. The digitizing of matatus. I remember being held up in traffic only to see Bob Collymore and the president riding in a matatu to launch the matatu payments. That didn't take off first time, but I think it's something that needs to happen. But the expressway is the biggest triumph we've seen in the last 12 months, and the opening of the expressway really has changed a lot of the whole customer experience of living in Nairobi. Somehow it is a bit of a two-tier journey, and perhaps we need pavements below. But it certainly is making a huge difference to the journey times, the mobility within the city. So I really want to turn to the panelists first of all, I think we've had some good insights into some of the challenges, and particularly from Cecilia. But perhaps you could pick on some of those. What would be your top? I'll go to Cecilia and Tyrus, but what would be your top 3 of the challenges that you want to solve? What are the problems within lands that you would like to immediately solve, and how technology might do that? But what are basically your top 3 priorities of problem solving within lands?
Okay, thank you. I think my priority in sorting some of the problems in LADs is first to have the data in digital form, because that will fast track the record retrieval and management, and also it also reduce the litigations that are in large numbers in the county. I also want to prioritize on titling of the public facilities to block them from endangering of grabbing, because you realize the Nairobi being a fairly lucrative city, everybody wants to own something. It does not matter what method they use. So we want to protect them from the grabbing. And apart from the titling, we also look at the point where we can also be able to do some ground possession by fencing, either doing just simple fences or even doing the perimeters if we can. We are addressing the issue of PPP with the other partners to do leases, to do sub-leases for some time, to make sure at least our land is protected. That's for public facilities. Because the moment they are idle, they are endangered. Actually, those are my major priorities: to title the public facilities, digitize, my 2 registries, that is the registry having the land records, the allotment records, and the valuation records, and taking ground possession of the public facilities, which is supposed to be done by the user departments, but I'm the source of that information. I have to earmark to them, this is the extent of your land, plan how to do the ground possession or subleasing. We do a policy to make sure that we sublease for some short period, to make sure the people we sublease take care of our land. And also the titling of their locations. That is the people who are located this land. Some of them are very poor. We want to make sure we provide the titles for them. That is going to empower them in their generations. It's also going to protect the land from people who could be earmarking for grabbing. You see, the poor people in the community, they may not have the machinery to protect. So the empowered one will take advantage. My priority is titling for that. The 80,000 properties, to make sure they are titled. I also look forward to regularizing what has been done irregularly, together with my planning counterpart, so that we are also to make sure we upgrade that land and we revert it back to our rates database and we collect revenue on it. Because these people are overstressing our facilities. They are using our roads, they are using our water services, but we are collecting nothing from them because they don't have legitimate documents. And I think that's my priority. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd just like to invite as well, we have a 4th panelist. This is from Nairobi County, the County Chief of Mobility. I didn't catch your name, Victor just told me, but maybe I'd like to invite the County Chief of Mobility to join the stage. And thank you. So perhaps I'll go to you next, and maybe introduce yourself. Victor didn't tell me your name, so I haven't got it, so I'll write it down. But maybe as you introduce, if you could just recap on, we've obviously had presentations from the other county chiefs, but really the question I'm asking here is, what are your top priorities, right? If you're Chief of Mobility, what are the things you want to tick off in your time in the next, term of this administration as County Chief of Mobility? So I'll invite you to give us a summary. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning once again.
Morning.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Boniface Nyamo. I'm the Chief Officer Mobility, Nairobi County. I will also start by apologizing because of coming late. It was not my intention to come late. There were vehicles that we were flagging off with His Excellency the Governor, and me being the Chief Officer Mobility, it was only prudent I be there. So it was some other duties, but I hope you find it in your hearts to forgive me. Otherwise, when it comes to mobility, there are so many things that we want to do. And for those of you who might be wondering what is mobility, mobility is another name for advanced transport. So my docket is majorly transport. And if you compare our systems and the developed world transport, you will realize there's a lot of difference because everything there is technological while we are still manual. So I aspire to first ensure that all our parkings are automated. We want to use intelligent services instead of using the manual services of having people to go from one parking to another, collecting our revenue or querying vehicles manually. Number two, I have another very big headache. My main headache is the public service vehicles, popularly known as matatus in Kenya. The reason as to why you find them parked in CBD is because we do not have an intelligent way of letting them come to CBD when the need arises, rather than coming to town and stopping there, waiting for rush hour for passengers to come. And that is one of the reasons as to why you can see our town is very congested. So if you and me as innovators come up with a solution to our PSVs, to me that will be my greatest achievement. Even if I don't do anything else, and we manage to automate the way public service vehicles come to town, and we succeed, I will have succeeded. Another area that I am desirous of having it automated is our fleet management. You realize Nairobi County is a special county. It cannot be considered like a county like Isiolo, Kirinyaga, Kakamega. It's a special county because of its circumstances. We run a fleet of more than 500 vehicles. It is very difficult to run 500 vehicles without a fleet management system, which requires technology. We are aspiring to ensure that before this year ends, we have that working. It will help us in fuel management. It will also detect fuel interference. It will also tell us whether our vehicle is being misused, because when our vehicle leaves the boundaries of our county, we are also supposed to know. So there are so many things that we want to do. We also want to go cashless as far as PSVs are concerned. There's a time I went to Singapore and I was given a card. Even as a foreigner who is staying there for only 5 days, I was given a card. When you enter into a bus, you just tap. Immediately you tap, your fare is deducted, you are late, you get another one, you tap. When you go to the train, you use the same card, you tap. So I found that system very efficient and very convenient. So we are also going that direction. So in short, in transport, there are so many things that we want to do through innovation. And I know we cannot do it on our own, because even sometimes capacity is a challenge. But with innovators like the one sitting in front of us, I know it is very possible, and partnerships from non-governmental organizations and so on and so forth. So I can reach there. Yeah.
Thank you. Look, I just want to touch on something there. I mean, you talked about going to Singapore and buying a card and then just tapping on the buses. But if you go to London, you don't even need to buy a card. Huh? This is my debit card from NCBA. It's got this NFC thing in here. So if I go to London, I just get on the bus and I just tap my NCBA card. It will charge it back to my bank. It doesn't work with M-Pesa, but it does work with this card. So it's obviously very important that when making payment systems that they are inclusive. Nairobi's a city that's got lots of tourists and people visiting all the time, as well as the locals. So I think I'm going to come a bit more to Rhoda about the customer experience side, but you know, the importance of the inclusive customer experience is very important. You found it very easy when you got to Singapore, so I think that's a great example. So yeah, I'm going to come to Tyrus. Cyrus, you may have some additional problems that are on your radar, but it seems to me you've got a lot of county chiefs. We have two of them here, and they've probably got their own issues. How do you prioritize, obviously, you know, which ones are going to get the most focus, but in building a smart city architecture that will be adaptable to and agile to be able to solve the problems? So it might be a multifaceted question, but you know, any problems, any challenges you want to add, but also what is your thinking in which county chief you are prioritizing to fix their problems? No, it's not working.
The microphone technology.
No, you can pass him on those. Sorry. It's working now. Oh, there.
Okay.
Okay.
I think he just wanted to rest a bit. Thank you very much. And I'm happy even just by sitting there and listening to just two chief officers, you can see the magnitude of what we need to do around smart cities in Nairobi. Maybe first of all, before I forget, the card that you, the NCBA card, we can say Kenya, we are making progress towards that. You know, with CBK providing a common QR code now, meaning that there is now going to be interoperability among all the QR codes. So once we go cashless in the areas of transport, you may not even need to invent a new card, even your phone. And this is the beauty of it, because we now have even M-Pesa and all. Even your phone can just be used for payment, you know, as a QR code reader and all. In Nairobi, as you realize, we have very, very energetic chief officers, and each of them wants us to do the aspects of automation and digitization in their sectors today, not tomorrow. So, but what we are trying to do, of course, is we have the governor's manifesto, and we have tried to prioritize all this in our CIDP on where do we start. We also happen to have, in around 2016, there was a roadmap for ICT in Nairobi that was done by PwC. That was actually World Bank paid for PwC to do a roadmap for Nairobi City County. So we are also alive to that, and we are trying to ensure that we fill in every single gap that was identified within the roadmap by PwC. So those are some of the things that we are using. Of course, ideally, we need to improve the experiences of Nairobians. And how I look at it is we do it from the inside out, and again also, sometimes there's a friend of mine who says you can chew gum and walk. Inside out, I mean, we have a very big role inside the city hall to ensure that all processes are paperless. When all processes are paperless, as the chief officer Lance was saying, sometimes it is very easy to tamper with the physical records. At least today, with the technologies that we have, for example, when you come to the issues of application for title deeds and all the likes, we have blockchain technology, which is going to ensure that you're going to be able to see consecutive ownership and transfer of that land and any other land management around that. So we are looking into such issues which are going to ensure that we automate City Hall internally. We are already doing several of those projects, like our HR records. I don't want to open that Pandora's box because people here will start talking about ghost workers and all. So of course, using technology, we are going to at least be able to do, we already actually automating those HR records, and we go to, which is very important because it cuts across all these sectors, for example, HR. And so you have to have that in mind because she has employees who need to be tracked on what they are doing and all that, and that already gets half the work done. Boniface has drivers, and that again already gets half the work done. And so we go on that way as we ensure that we provide all those services. Outside there, other big priorities also are in the hospitals. We are working very hard to get an integrated health management, health information management system, which ensures that a Nairobian can be treated today if you're in Mama Lucy, because this is a very small county. And you find yourself in Westlands today, tomorrow you find yourself in Mwiki, and the next day in another place. And you need a seamless, seamless service in each and every of those hospitals. Again, that one we are also in quite some advanced
we encountered some advanced stages towards doing that. And of course, mobility. The city needs to breathe. This is what the governor says, the city needs to breathe. And it is such a humongous task for myself and Boniface to be able to ensure that the city is breathing. You can move, as you said, there's a
It's gone to sleep again. Hey.
So there's a time that I used to live somewhere around in Maradaima. And one day I decided to walk to town, to the CBD. And I marked. Do we need to do the same thing again?
Yeah, just...
He has given up.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think we have
Which one is that? They're bringing you another, okay. It must be loose, huh?
Thank you. And I decided to walk, and I marked a few vehicles along that route. And I can assure you, I got to town before those vehicles in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a tight schedule, so it's just 10 kilometers, by the way. It's not, don't think that I'm doing some crazy walking. It's just 10 kilometers, but you can imagine you take, when you're walking normally, you take at least around 2 hours for you to do that 10 kilometers. And of course, we need to change that. And again, we have been into a lot of planning, and this is going to take in a lot of innovation. We are looking into how do we schedule. And again, and funny enough, and this is why I said, we have to look at ensuring that technology does not come to increase the socio and economic divide. If I ask most of you here, what the main cause of traffic congestion in Nairobi is, I know, by the way, let me just try.
Pedestrians.
How many of you are going to say matatus? Just be honest, don't worry, just be honest. How many of you are going to say that matatus are the biggest problem for traffic? Oh, I know, yeah, at least someone is honest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least a good number of you are honest. But you can ask Boniface, that's not true. 90% of traffic congestion in Nairobi is caused by private vehicles. 90%. If you just take an aerial view of Nairobi in the morning, you're going to sight a matatu over there and another one, you know, very, very far apart. And so, of course, we know if a vehicle is having a carrying capacity of 50 people and another one is having a capacity of one person, each and every one of you driving there, of course, and you're occupying the same amount of space on the road, you're going to realize that we are straining our infrastructure. It is no longer feasible to construct bigger roads. It is about now using technology, ensuring that, of course, people will say, but we did this because matatus don't get, you don't know what time they are going to come, and those are the issues that we are going to try and address using technology. We now have so much technology. If you can call for an Uber, you can be able to get online and look at where matatus that are plying your route are at that time and pay for one and ensure that these matatus also adhere to this discipline. While we have a lot of privatization, we still do a lot of controls and regulations around matatus. And so those, for me, paperless, mobility, and health are the key priorities. And of course, we have to ensure that we keep working around ways of prioritizing all these aspects of the smart city.
Thanks. I mean, really good examples there, I think. And for everybody who's here in the audience and those listening on the live stream, I think you know, we've had some challenges set by the county. I think many people have been innovating with different solutions and trying to address these problems. And I think maybe have got frustrated before, but now it's clear that we have a county government who want to solve problems. It's very much Tyrus's job. I don't know how he's going to get all this done, but I met the governor on Monday, but I remember when he was campaigning, he said, we want to make Nairobi work, and I think that is the intention of the county. I'm going to come to Rhoda, though, because I think you picked on some really good points around designing things collaboratively with the municipality and with the population, with the people as well. And we've talked about the inclusiveness of visitors in the Singapore example when he visited nicely. Now you've done some work in Johannesburg, which is in many ways one of my least favorite cities in Africa. But when you get to Johannesburg, the first thing you'll see as you're landing on a plane there is you'll see Liquid Telecom have taken over the airport with banners everywhere. You can't miss that. But the next thing you'll probably see is getting to the How train if you want to get into Sandton or somewhere into other parts of Johannesburg. And for that, it's a very unpleasant experience for a visitor. You have to go to a counter, buy a card, put money on the card, but you can't put the exact fare on the card. You can only put 1,000 or 2,000, and the fare is like 450 or something like this. I hope you didn't design this. I don't think you did. But really, to your point, right? It's about the people, right? I mean, that's the question. So maybe you can talk about the people side and the customer-focused design. Oh, I've got the same problem.
Thank you. I was actually enjoying my co-panelists speaking about the challenges, because the beauty about service design is that you can solve for literally any problem on the planet using that methodology. And the reason why a lot of public initiatives fail is because they don't involve the people. For example, I know in the matatu industry, recently there was a drive to, these digitization drives have been there. I remember a few years ago, they were trying to get people to pay digitally. And the makangas, the conductors, would tell you, the card is not working today, the app is off, and they would force you to pay with cash. So some of the reasons why these initiatives fail is because we do not speak to the people who are involved in these experiences. Our solution approaches solutions from a data research perspective, whereby we talk to passengers, let's say matatu passengers, we ask them, what is your experience as you use a matatu, let's say from wherever? What is your experience with the actual bus itself? How do you find the seat? How is the language? How are you spoken to? When you're being picked up, does the driver stop in the bus stop, or are you forced to run and catch the matatu when it's blocking traffic? When it comes to paying, are you able to get your change immediately, or are you told, nitakupatia baadaye? And then sometimes you end up alighting the matatu, you don't have your change. Sometimes the conductor will even alight without having given you your change, and you're left wondering, who do I speak to? You speak to the driver and he tells you, my work is to drive the bus, deal with, So getting to the bottom of these experiences, the entire journey, we map the entire journey from the beginning up to the end, from the moment someone enters that public transport vehicle to the moment they get to their destination, if they get to their destination. We also map the experience of the service provider. We speak to the drivers, for example, what are their pain points or frustrations, what is their vision for good or high quality public transport, because the solutions are with these people. They know what the problems are. Speak to the conductor, ask them what are their challenges, how do they feel about, for example, being forced to go back to get licensed afresh, right? So when you include everyone, the solutions that you come up with are more tailored to their needs. and they have more uptake. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's definitely going to be the case. Any e-government service, any automated government services that are adopted and used widely, they're either used because you're forced to use it or because you want to use it. And I think it's the key in making something that people want to use it. Then you don't get that rejection. This is that launch of the e-payments on the matatus is a great one, right? And you picked on it exactly right. It was ultimately at the end of the day, the Makangas who didn't want it because maybe it was affecting their livelihoods. So engaging all the stakeholders is quite important to get things right. I want to talk a bit about, in the next round of questions, sort of around ways to execute things and scale up these solutions. But I think that large city-wide projects do often require a lot of capital expenditure. A lot of money has got to go into that. And often this in itself might favor foreign companies. A company like Moja Expressway is able to come and invest in Kenya, and they've done a fantastic job, but they have unlimited Chinese financing at their fingertips. They're able to borrow money from Chinese banks and come and invest and build an entire expressway. We have many Kenyan innovators here, and a lot of them have come with different solutions. Liquid has invited on our stand. We've got specifically 5 or 6 startups who are doing smart city solutions from water, mobility, lockers, carbon reduction, and as well as training and education. But a common theme from all of the startups we work with is they invent something that they often can pitch it to a public sector, but then it comes the how are they going to pay for it. These startups are too small to go to the World Bank and ask for huge funding. The public procurement process is quite difficult. They can do a lot of work on POCs and then it will go out to tender and they risk that their work has been wasted. So there's some of these challenges. But when Tyrus has been around to see some of these stalls, but I really do recommend to all of you, and particularly you've just arrived, Boniface, to go and see the innovations we have here before you leave. But also we have in this Nairobi Innovation Week some startups have come from all over Africa, and I really want to invite one of those because he doesn't have a booth here. So I want to invite Bashir, who's here from Nigeria, to come and talk about what you're doing in terms of safety and public urban safety. You can give him a microphone. Or maybe use this one and then yeah, maybe, yeah. Take a seat.
Sorry?
Yeah, present for me and then take a seat.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your location, actually. And good morning once more to my panelists and the moderator. And thanks for the opportunity. My name is Abubakar Bashir. I'm the founder and CEO at a climate tech company called Flowis. We're basically in Nigeria and other 6 sub-Saharan African countries. So at Climate Tech, what we normally do, we seek to help solve the persistent adversity of climate change, extreme weather, and natural disaster by providing a low-cost, socially inclusive, and gender-responsive solution to such, basically to the vulnerable individuals, communities, businesses, and even economies. Okay, to the mic, sorry. Yeah. So can I recap a bit? Okay, fine. So once more, my name is Abubakar Bashir. I'm the founder and CEO at a climate tech company called Flowis. We're based in Nigeria, and what Flowis does is that we seek to help provide services to the persistent adversity of climate change, extreme weather, and natural disaster to the vulnerable communities, businesses, government, and even direct individuals. So I was given an opportunity actually by Liquid and by the Nairobi County for the Innovation Week to speak a little about our journey, what we've been doing towards ensuring adaptability, resiliency, and mitigation of climate change. I will start by quoting a quote by the UN Secretary General in passing of Guterres. He did mention that 1 out of 3 globally lack access to an early warning information, or early warning system, or early warning intelligence, with Africa leading the charge. And I overheard from one of the panelists here, I was saying that Nairobi has a projection of a population to be around 10 million by 2030, 2050, which is huge. That makes Nairobi to be at the forefront of being affected. I know we have drought in East Africa already, the heat wave, and it kept mutating. But for the sake of this, I would like to keep my focus strictly to devastation that has to do with hydrometeorological, basically like flood, for example, leading to landslide, for example, leading to inflow of tsunami, surface-based flooding, river, or whatever. So, how our solution is solving the problem is that we monitor, we forecast, using different set of technologies, actually. The conventional technology that we all aware is a satellite, actually. Yeah, it covers a larger area, but that it has a deficit sometimes for a revisit particular area. So leveraging the kind of planet and black sky, we can be able to have a kind of a 45-minute revisit time to nearly everywhere in the world, basically all part of Africa. So inculcating the data from the satellite with also our proprietary sensor that we've built in-house, planted along the river base, along multiple channels with GeoAI and our in-house hydrological model, we can be able to give you an impact-based forecast for nearly every part of Africa currently. As I've said earlier, we're in 6 sub-Saharan African countries, but our presence here, we're looking for ways to expand into the East African terrain. After the forecasting is done, that impact-based forecasting is being disseminated to the right individuals who need it the most. For the sake of this particular meeting, I'll consider the Nairobi Council, for example. I just read that there was a flooding march in Nairobi that swept away a 12-year-old girl, and she was found dead at the end of the day. So with such particular services, this could have been evaded, could have been stopped, for example. So after that particular information has been disseminated to the right party, then it's left for the decision makers to use that actionable insight to take an effective decision towards reducing that particular adversity itself. So once they get it, then it can be worked towards reducing that particular devastation among the livelihood, a critical infrastructure, basically utility infrastructure, biodiversity itself, and down to economic losses, reducing it to what minimal. There's a flood in China currently. I think about 15 million population have been affected, and just for a span of a week, I think there is about 100+ million in damages caused to infrastructure. That's China alone, that are having to be among the fastest growing as an economy, or controlling the economy of the world currently. But if that is to happen in Africa, basically places like Nairobi, like Lagos, it's gonna be devastating actually. What we have in Lagos is quite even different because it's a coastal area. We have the rise in sea level coming through, the coastal flooding, coastal degradation. We also have the river coming through as a delta, passing water to the Atlantic Ocean. And we also have a poor urban design itself, and also an anthropogenic factor by dumping a lot of refuse into the drainage system, causing it to clog. So if we can adopt, let's use her steps actually, for the service design, adopt something like that, for example, combine it together, we can be able to provide an effective solution, multiple solution for the Nairobi City Council, for example. Even though flood may not be the core problem here, it may be heat wave, it may be drought, for example, but it can be the same. I'll ask into the room, has anybody in the room gotten a targeted message? Or has anybody in the room that's gotten a targeted message specifically targeting you or your property, or maybe your asset before, regarding, let's say there's going to be a heat wave, there's going to be a specific heavy rainfall that's going to affect, and how it's affecting you? The question, please. Have you? No. So that's the challenge, and that's what the UN Secretary General is saying, that by 2027, we need to have the entire world to be covered by an early warning information, and that's an opportunity for us. It has been said by the World Economic Forum that the climate crisis itself is a $2 trillion opportunity for everybody, and it is affecting everybody in an unprecedented way, either directly or indirectly. individuals, businesses, and even the governments. So it makes it my problem, your problem, and everybody's problem. Remember, there's no planet B. So I'd just like to talk on something called the 6D of exponential service delivery by my mentor, Peter Diamandis, the founder and CEO of XPRIZE, and also HeroX. So the first D is talking about digitizing innovation, digitizing events. Sorry, I'm not using the slide actually, it's okay. Digitizing events actually. If all critical events can be digitized from what they are, using the sensors, the satellite, and any valuable means of digitization, then it can provide a valuable as a breakthrough or an icebreaker for penetrating through. So in our case, we are digitizing each and every flooding activity that's going to happen in Africa 6 days advance. If it's a flash flood, 6 hours in advance. So after the digitization, then that means if we digitize, then we are disrupting the conventional way things are already. And if we have disrupted, then that means we have decepted the order of the day, the status quo. Then down to the order of the day that we're having the conventional system that is being used to capture the data, the satellite that have a poor revisit time, as in longer term revisit time, the radar system, and sometimes in the villages like you used to watch, you won method. So we're changing that. So we're materializing the conventional huge traditional system into something very small, for example. By doing that, with the help of AI, advancement in technology, exponential growth, you can use the smartphone, for example. iPhone 4, for example, has a LiDAR feature that a lot of people don't know even what it is for. So by that particular dematerialization, actually, then definitely we are reducing the material size and cost. By reducing the material size and cost, then that means we are demonetizing it to be affordable. Then by it being affordable, then that means we are democratizing that to be available or to be affordable by nearly everybody in the room. If you check 20 years back, how many people can afford a smartphone, as even a phone, for example? Are there mobile connectivity connecting each part of Africa? Only some places, actually. But if you have passed through the journey from the 90s to the early 2000s to today, actually, for us being the millennials, you have to understand the difficulty that our forefathers or maybe our parents and even us that are older have been passed through to where we are actually. So leveraging on those particular 6D, once that particular technology has been dematerialized, then that means it can be in the hands of each and anybody in the room or maybe in the country regarding the channel they prefer of access. So we're offering our services via kind of a multi-channel gateway, for example. For the government, for the councils, for the county, local government, for example, we can, if you have an existing IT infrastructure, we can deploy that on what you have already. And our service also complement the legacy system that you have. If you have in place, you still want to continue. You have a bunch of services that can just go through and continue. Now we're moving to the SaaS because it's quite cheaper. We are virtualizing nearly everything into the cloud, and it makes no need of redundancy, application power, maintenance. With the likes of the data center, the East African data center, for example, it can be deployed as a SaaS. So you can access our services, and wherever you have your infrastructure into the cloud, and you have an existing structure of how you can be able to disseminate that particular as a critical and life-saving information to the general masses. That's for the government. For the NGOs and the humanitarian organization, actually, we're working directly with the Red Cross, the Direct Relief, and so on and so forth, for example. Okay. Thank you. Also, so instead of their presence currently as in being kind of providing foot on ground, whereas when we have access that we can be able to deploy kind of access to the phenomenon indirectly so that they spend less, we do the work for them, they get the data from us, and they can be able to provide kind of humanitarian services wherever they are in Africa. That's for the humanitarian. But where the money comes from actually is the enterprise and the business sector. Currently, the likes of the insurance company and the insurers. Do we have disaster insurance scheme in Africa? Do you have in Kenya? I don't think so. Disaster insurance scheme. We don't have that. Yeah. Yes. It will happen actually. You can't stop it from happening actually. But if there is a disaster insurance scheme, at least it can be able to cover for all actually. It has been said that it's better to invest in preparedness rather than recovery, because recovery almost costs about $25 to $30, while preparedness can cost just 50 cents or maybe $1, for example. So with this, for example, insurers can be confident to list a kind of a disaster warning services as in disaster insurance services into their premium insurance, whereby places that normally get flooded, like Lagos, Lekki, and I know Kisumu in Kenya also get flooded. So critical infrastructure can be insured, And whenever they get flooded, they get their premium, they claim their insurance. We have the likes of the stock exchange also, and the logistic partners, just mobility as well. There's a lot of case study that doesn't, your bus gets stuck, for example, or maybe carrying supplies, fuel for critical needs actually along the way. If to say you are to receive an early warning, a forecast that telling you that this particular way is going to be, this particular route is going to be affected, you can reroute your route to a much more safer route to provide a kind of effective delivery of your services, of your goods and services. Down to like the stock exchange, for example. Now climate is detecting the way stock rises and falls also. I wouldn't have much time. We'll dive also into the research and academia. We're giving our services for free for the research and academia. Basically the raw data, we guide them on what to do with the data actually, and we take account for it. And down to the last mile, people like you and me and other millennials that use our services in the form of if you're using a low feature phone, you use SSD services there. If you're using basically, let's say, low feature phone as well, IVR service in different languages. If we're expanding here, then definitely it's going to be Swahili. But like in Nigeria, we have like different diversity, which is a bit of a problem we have to work on actually. The application is also there on the iOS and the Android Play Store if you wish to access that also. And one more thing that I forgot is the API access also, for those that wish to integrate. You may have an existing solution, but you don't want to like change everything, so consume an API, put it, consume what you want to do, and you can provide a very good forecast and services, similar services. So I'm saying currently we're in 6 African countries. We have raised some grants actually and some equity funding as well. For the investors in the room, for those that are open for partnership and collaboration, mentorship as well, we're open to that. We have gotten a lot of accolades actually from and across the world actually. During GITEX last year, I think 3 early Africans reached the finals, a Kenyan, and I, and one other Nigerian, as in it's like became the pride of Africa. I will commend actually the City Council of Nairobi for pulling out this and having a special track for the smart city and sustainability. And thanks to Liquid for sponsoring such and for inviting us to be part of this. My special request to the entire audience in the room and those that are streaming from all over the continent, for example, is that the climate crisis is everybody's business. And it is happening in an unprecedented way. And it's going to happen unless if we become adaptable and resilient to it. So making the world to be a safer, smarter, and more resilient place to continue living against those particular adversities is definitely the work of me, you, and everybody in the room. So join me in trying to make the world to be sustainable and resilient. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, very thought-provoking. It's the first time I've heard this word climate injustice. I will say that in Nairobi we have the best weather in the world, and that is an injustice of being unfair. But there are other areas in Kenya where climate change is being particularly impactful. But even very close to Nairobi, there's one area, and we were just talking about it before, but there's a national park you can drive to from a short drive from here called Hell's Gate. And then you can get out and take a walk through some canyons. And literally every few years, there's some disaster where there's some rain in the hills and people are flooded out and washed out and there are drownings. And no early warning system, even the rangers there. So something like what you're doing, I see Kenya Wildlife Services, who are responsible for that park, as being someone excellent to talk to. So we'll pick up on that. Yeah, I mean, this thing of the impact of climate change is very important, and we're even seeing now climate change is damaging some of our digital infrastructure. We've had flooding in Durban, in Mozambique as well, which has even damaged the fiber optic cable which is connecting the internet. Right now, 2 undersea fiber cables have been cut yesterday, or 2 days ago, near the mouth of the River Congo, and this is caused by and it's happened before, it happened 2 years ago as well. And then large parts of West Africa have no internet or slow internet because of heavy rain in the Congo, and the outflow of the water into the Atlantic Ocean has caused the damage to the fiber optic cables. So these are we at Liquid are thinking more around the impact of climate change as well as minimizing. But you picked on a good thing around, here is a business model. You're working obviously development with grants, but looking at business models where insurance is going to be the one that's just going to pay for early warnings. And I think that's a very clear to have a good business model. And so I want to come to this part. I want to go back, I think, to Rhoda first. And with the projects you've done with public utilities already, have you managed to find a business model? Is it something where a tender has been issued, you've answered a tender? Is it something where you've gone PPPs, or are you still working in progress? And any challenges you've had in sort of doing this, these types of services with any public utilities where you've been deploying your platforms?
I want to make sure I've had your question correctly. You've asked what challenges we have experienced in trying to find partners.
Well, yeah, but business models. When you've been working with utility, government, local government, how have you managed to make the model? Is it like a PPP, or have they issued a tender to buy your platform? How has been the engagement to make the need to roll out the platform?
I have to say it's not easy, because service design as a concept, it can be a difficult concept to convince people about. But through forums like these ones, we're able to come and speak about what we do and make connections, and after that we have this type of conversations which enable us to complete this type of initiatives. All the projects I showed on the screen were not done by us alone. We had partners. I think you saw IBM, among us, Oxfam.
Okay.
So it really goes into that spirit of collaboration and getting all the different players. It's really just selling the dream, and once a number of us see it, we're able to convince people to on board. So it's a huge lobbying process, but we're making strides, and we're hoping we'll also get some partners from here.
Okay, thank you. Now, so I want to come back to the NAIROBI team. I'll come back to Tyros last, but maybe from Boniface. First of all, any reactions to the presentations we've heard from both from Bashir and we've heard from Rhoda around these challenges? Are you seeing ways in implementing your mobility challenges? What are the ways that, as a county, you have to find partnerships? What is your scope? How do you think you can take those forwards, rather than just waiting for issuing a tender and seeing what comes? What is going to be the possibilities?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
For avoidance of doubts, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Thank you very much. That tells me that you can hear me, because there's a speaker who was not being heard until we gave him the mic. So I agree with what the speaker was saying, but there's a lot that needs to be done. So in terms of partnership, I think the way we would be looking to ensure that we move faster than the way we are moving is first to have enhanced resources, because you find our counties are very limited in terms of resources, and especially economic resources. Sometimes you want to do research, sometimes you want to buy equipment, sometimes you want to buy gadgets, sometimes you want people to work in those systems, but all that requires resources. So in terms of resources, if we would get enhancement, and enhancement can be even through partnership, it will help. Number two is capacity building. When you look at our county, it moved from the municipal council, then it came to a county, and now we are calling it the super county. One of the biggest challenges that we have is capacity, especially someone like Tyrus, who we are all relying on to give us solutions and way forward. If you go to his department or subsector, he cannot tell you here, but the challenges and the reality on the ground is that he's very, very limited in terms of capacity and technical people. So if that will be improved, that will be enhanced, that is something else that will ensure, again, we move faster than the way we are doing. However, having said that, it does not mean that we are stagnant. We are still moving. The only problem or the only difference is, according to me, the speed with which we are moving is not the one to take us where we want to be in the next couple of years, 5, 10. Because remember, we have a vision called Vision 2030. What is contained in Vision 2030, part of it are what we are discussing here, technological solutions and so on and so forth. So I think that is what I would say for now.
Thank you. Yeah, good answer. Yes, I'm going to come back to Cecilia. Maybe your take on the same question, reactions from what you've heard, and any ways you can think of to enhance the possibility for partnerships, for implementations of these solutions.
Thank you. I think from the speaker who had just left the podium, I've heard him talk about grants, and I think I would buy that out, because that's actually what can support, because when we look at the magnitude of the digitization we are talking about, it is in large volumes, and we don't even have the infrastructure and even the software. So if we go that way, I think partnership, we can embrace it. We all need to be advised on how to go about it. On top of that, even the equipment we are talking about on the digitization of the leases, the production of leases, it would also involve a lot of funds, which the county government is not able to meet even in the next 5 years, because we have a strenuous budget. So if that can also be availed, I think we'll buy that out. And I'm sure after that we'll be able to realize good revenue income that can even turn around the issues the way they are currently in the county. I think we'll bring that, we will welcome that soonest possible. Thank you.
So I'm hearing two important points here. And I think one from Tyrus is around the county itself actually having limited resources to innovate, to test things, to trial things out. And maybe this is something where development partners can work with, obviously organizations like UN Habitat is having its headquarters here, so people who are focusing on sustainable cities. I think we can help the county with capacity. Even in everything, even within departments, it seems that the county itself is constrained for funds. So I think the key for innovators is to give the county bankable solutions. So you can say this is going to either bring you revenue or save you money right away. So you're improving on your budget. Although there might be some investment, you're going to save money or you're going to make money. I think this is going to be absolutely key. And yeah, so I'm going to come to Tyrus. You've now got the biggest job in Nairobi to make it smart. So maybe reactions from you, and then what are you thinking in terms of how, now you've seen some of the innovations that are around. How can your department work together with the local innovators, with the innovators from other cities, from Lagos and others, use the best of Africa, use the best of what's here in Nairobi? So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do agree with my partner, with my colleagues on some of these challenges. But over time, as some of these innovations have been put in front of us. And as you have said it, one of the things that I have advised anyone who has come with an innovation is, yes, we want to offer services. That is true. But the easiest way of getting into someone's heart around government especially is showing them how you're going to generate revenue out of this, or how you're going to make actual savings out of this. But it always also depends on what kind of innovation what kind of innovation you're bringing. For example, there are certain areas of the government whereby we just provide more to do with regulations, but then a lot of it is privatized. For example, if I may put in the aspect of the matatu industry, what you realize is banks are very interested in the matatu industry. Someone put it across as a $1 billion shillings industry per year. It's over $1 billion actually, if you even consider the purchase of the buses, and you can just imagine the flow of the cash flow that is usually in that industry. So what I would advise, for example, and this again goes case by case based on what you're innovating around. If, for example, you're talking about search, you're best, because you're most likely going to, for example, approach a bank that is going to fund this, so that, and the bank's end game is that all this money is going to, once your app is successful, all this money is going to flow through that bank. And that is all they want. So it is about, and I know this has been a challenge in most cases for innovators, and this is the one area that I'm happy that now Victor is actually coming in to assist in, because people have very good innovations, but now the entrepreneurial skills is where things go wrong. And so once you look at that, you think about that case and how it helps that other person make money, then you're more likely to get those partners. Then again, get to issues, for example, around environment. As you said, UN Habitat is around here, UNEP is here. We are not short of some of these organizations that we can put some of these cases in front of. Again, and this is where you find the world all over is trying to commercialize almost every other aspect, because it is more sustainable. Even for that, instead of going for, say, UN Habitat and the likes, there are people who are interested in these carbon credits. Mm-hmm. So they know they are going to make money out of that. And that is sustainable. So you have to think around those areas. As government, those that we can absorb, for example, when you get to the health information management system, that one we are going to try to ensure that we invest directly in, because again, government is here to offer services. But for any innovators, before you grow big, you have just to, I have seen guys who have started out with very simple applications, but the moment they put their case forward very well, you know, an elevator pitch, within 1 minute or 2 minutes, I can get your case, and I'm interested in investing in it. So I have seen them now be able to come with a muscle of a bank. I've seen them be able to come with a muscle of VCs. I've seen some very young boys come in the office, but their backup is a person who is ready to spend 100 million there, because these young people have convinced this person how they are going to get back their money. So that is a reality, because we may not be able to offer, you know, give you that tender. You'll get that tender, but you're going to be told to have a performance bond, of a certain millions of shillings, which you're probably not going to afford. So you have to think around that as you grow. And I'm hoping that some of these forums are going to attract enough VCs so that in future we can be able to get as many as possible homegrown solutions to local problems. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. So some solutions are going to be like buying a health management information system. That's a transactional. This is what we want. Please supply to the specifications. Other types of innovations have not necessarily been tried before, and maybe you're going to require different financing models. So Tyrus, you mentioned as well. Sorry, not Tyrus. To Bashir. Sorry. Lastly, you mentioned that you'd had some grants, and you were talking about, making models of the insurance companies. How hard has that been to move from that R&D stage into those bankable models? What have been the challenges there?
So thank you. It's quite challenging, actually. We're like 6 years old, and this isn't my first startup. This is my fifth. 2 failures, 1 exit, and currently running 2 across climate change and maritime. But I'm co-focused on Flowis currently. Flowis is 6 years old. The transition from R&D actually to where we are currently is quite challenging, and it couldn't have been made possible without a lot of support coming from sectors like yours and theirs also, because I wanted to go to them, understand, have the permission, and people like you coming from the external sector to provide other support and services. With the likes of Google, Amazon, and so on and so forth, they have provided a lot of services. But most of my credit will go to NASA and the European Space Agency, because they lease out about a 45-year-old access to all the data, global data they have in silo for us. So we use that data to train our model to be able to understand where it's going to get flooded. So that serves as a benchmark for us to start, plus series of acceleration program in Bavaria, Germany, and the Netherlands as well. So that's for the general data. But later, we thought of going hyperlocal. That's where the issue of sensor come through. We have to build our own sensor with our own set of devices targeting the area. We utilize IoT, and we have some other teams that managed to build everything in-house. Then to where we are currently, we managed to inculcate all the data sources that we have together to provide a more impact-based forecast. Not that we're alone in the market. Actually, what we felt, or how we perceive it here in Africa, is that whenever it comes to anything disaster or climate risks, it's the work of the government or the humanitarian, actually. But actually, it has a huge potential for the private sector to venture in and tap a huge revenue from it. So talking about the insurance, I got my first-class experience of that in Miami, Florida, actually. Florida used to be it's a coastal city, actually, and there's a series of hurricanes. And it's recurring each year. It must be starting from Mozambique, Malawi, past through Namibia, Zimbabwe, Angola, down to Ian, Katrina. We're still waiting for one to come through. So it will happen, actually. And you have built maybe a $1 billion infrastructure, maybe a critical infrastructure for the telecoms, for example, or maybe down to the citizens, for example, that are there. You can't just move the infrastructure to a more safer place, for example, because it has been there. It was your own mistake. So part of the things to do is to advise the insurance sector, because I'm not into insurance myself. You advise the insurance sector, like the AXA Mansat, for example, and ICO, for example. It can be a local insurance that doesn't. We have an opportunity for you, and this is what is really happening in this particular area. If you can be able to kind of innovate behind and provide an insurance services, we can provide you with all the necessary technology to help you handle the forecast. Because once you're a premium subscriber, part of what you'll get is our own services, for example. When it's going to get flooded, if you abide by the rules and regulation, then definitely, if it gets flooded, you can claim your insurance. But if you void that particular protocol, then definitely you have to lose your insurance. And that's how they get their money as well. I think we can replicate that in Africa with cities like Lagos, coastal city. Kenya is more inland, for example, but there are a lot of issues of flash flood. Not only for flood, actually. We have the heat wave currently hitting the Mediterranean and drought in Kenya currently. We can apply that to agriculture. And we can apply that to urban forestry as well, to cool down the impact of the heat wave itself. Talking about cloud credit and carbon credit earlier, If the city council can be able to, let's say, in the next 2 years, to have a project that can be able to cover the adjacent street of Nairobi entirely with varieties of trees, with a good consultation to know which part of the trees can be able to sequester a huge amount of carbon, for example, then definitely the council can be able to end itself as an offset of carbon, a lot of carbon from a lot of different partners that can be able to offset carbon. Like in our own case in Nigeria, we are matchmaking the mangrove as in the coastal area. That's the bite of Bonny, Gulf of Guinea as well. We can be able to identify where all the mangroves are, because mangrove has the potential to sequester as in gigatons of a single mangrove, as in megatons of carbon within just a single day, for example. So we matchmake them to like a shipping company called Grimaldi. It's a Spanish company actually, but as in one of the largest shipping company in Nigeria with a lot of carbon footprint. We can be able to tell them this is your footprint, but you can be able to offset huge amount of carbon, carbon credit to an owner of a mangrove. It can be the government, for example. It can be a normal parcel like this within the coastal area, and we provide you with the tool that can be able to make sure that as in it is being done properly. You can check the health status of the mangrove. Are they doing what they're doing? As in without even being there. So when you're okay, you offset a huge amount of carbon to them, and for us, being the matchmaking partner, we get 15% commission from it. Mm-hmm. Down to, as in Cecilia's question regarding the land actually, as in basically nearly everything is built on the land. And I think land encompasses about 31, some says 29% of the world entirely. But there are two things. It's either the continental, that's being the land, and water, being the sea. In other way, there must be an encroachment of one into the other. Now we're talking about the area of rise in sea level. Water is coming through, for example, or let's say a flash flood coming through the highland down to the lowland. It may not necessarily get flooded in Nairobi, but elsewhere, the watershed will find its way down into Nairobi and create a havoc for you. So right from a risk assessment, for example, you can create a little module out of what you're doing. When somebody is inquiring to buy a land, for example, then you can use your risk assessment to know that particular area, whether it is flood prone or it's going to be the nearest feature is going to be a flood prone area. Because we have like different categorization. There is a flood that takes 500 years before it will recur again. Some 100 years, some it annually kept recurring. So with that, you can be able to build a kind of evaluation catalog for your land. Because I've worked in the land sector. I've built solution for the land actually, because I want to see you personally after this. So you can increase your valuation and know which part of Nairobi is much valuable. It's not about the social infrastructure that you have, amenities that you have provided and infrastructure that you have provided. No, it can be about convincing them that I assure you that this particular land cannot get flooded in the next 100 years. I know of the land use act in Nigeria, the land is being leased to you for 99 years actually. I don't know of Nairobi, whether it is still the same. So that means you don't own it directly, but at least within 99 years, it's enough for a lifetime for you. Yeah. We can be able to build something for you that can be able to handle this. Also, it can create a kind of a flood, maybe a kind of a disaster score engine whereby the citizens can be able to go through, pay just say 200 shillings, for example, to be able to see that their particular community or asset is going to get flooded or it's going to be affected by a certain geological hazard. It can be meteorological hazard, for example, and you can be able to tap revenue. Before you realize, it can just be even just 50 shillings, for example. But before you realize, you can make it mandatory that you must present a kind of a certificate of that particular search, showing that that particular where you're going to build is not vulnerable to that particular hazard. And once you present it, it has reduced your workload for knowing that that particular area is safe for him to build his house. That's the insurance safety. I think. Yeah, lastly, to the agricultural sector. Urban agriculture, hydroponics, aquaculture, for example, down to the outskirts, providing a kind of a more precision agriculture. Yesterday, there was a lecture on digitizing the informal sector. Yeah, so she was talking about the risk, about whether the loans are going to be paid back because it was meant to be recycled among those that need it the most. So with the case study in Nigeria of a challenge that we had, the forecast was wrongly forecasted by the government, of which the flood came and it affected 32 out of 36 states in the country. One of the areas that is mostly hit is the riverside, where they were given loans specifically to plant rice. And because the forecast was wrong, what really happened was that the rice was submerged for like 3 weeks in water. And that's the highest a rice can withstand. it got deteriorated. And the moratorium for paying the loan is closer. You'll start by next year after selling your harvest, you start paying back gradually. But not in this case that your harvest has, as in your seedling, as in your farm entirely has been inundated by water. As in, how can you pay back the loan? You can't. So there are two faults here. One is the fault of the person that is tendering the loan, being the government, for example. As they're coming, you need to map out the location of the farmland itself. That's your work. Yeah, when you map out, then you check the vulnerability of that particular farmland. Is it going to get flooded? If it's definitely going to get flooded, then you shouldn't have as intended the loan to him. But now that it has already happened, a kind of a post-assessment, for example. The county of Nairobi or maybe Kenya government entirely want to alleviate the pain among those farmers. They can be able to say, okay, fine, we're going to increase your moratorium, but how can we genuinely know who are those that are affected? Then they get the maps of those farms that are affected and know exactly how to support them. Is either they increase their moratorium or either they give them an extra funding to support that. With this, I say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. This guy's got a lot of knowledge. Grab him afterwards, because he speaks on so many important issues. Until 2015, there was a word I'd never even heard of. Called riparian land. I didn't know what that meant. Riparian land. But anyway, I learned that word in about 2015. Suddenly in Kenya it was trending on Twitter a lot. But I think it's illustrative of some of the legacy problems Nairobi has. And Nairobi had to deal with some buildings that encroached onto waterways. And I think still some of these things are there. I want to ask, have we got long for questions? I want questions from the audience. I don't know how long we have, if Victor's here, but maybe we'll take 3 questions from the audience, and I'll see how we're doing for time. If anyone's got a roving mic, I see one hand there. I see a lady over here. Tessie, 2 questions. So maybe there's a microphone in the... And then another one here. So I have 3 questions. Oh, here's Victor.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel from ACE Mobility. So my question is towards the panelists, and we are discussing about smart city solutions, but we've not yet discussed about inclusivity in our great city of Nairobi. How is the county government of Nairobi, looking to support and increase inclusivity in the county, especially maybe from a mobility point of view, and also from the companies that are here with us? How are you also improving inclusivity in your own organization? For us at ACE Mobility, we provide affordable, reliable, and inclusive commute. So what we've done is we've created a mobility app similar to Uber, where now a person with disability can request a ride and get a trained driver to offer them the mobility solution. Our vehicles are accessible in that if someone has a disability, let's say someone has a physical disability, the vehicle has what we call either a swivel seat or a wheelchair ramp. For the swivel seat, the seat is able to lower to the ground, and a person on a wheelchair can transfer from the wheelchair to the seat comfortably without having to be lifted up. The second category of vehicles that we have are vehicles with a wheelchair ramp, where the ramp is at the back of the vehicle. We open up the ramp and then we push the person into the vehicle while they are still seated on the wheelchair. So you don't have to also again lift the person from the wheelchair to the seat. So that is a solution you're offering. Yes, and we are an early stage startup, so we are still looking for partnerships to grow this solution. Thank you.
Thanks, excellent. Normally in Kenya, people say I have a small presentation, then a question. I like the way you did the question first. It's very clever. Next question is the young lady there. Okay, yeah, we're here, so we'll do it on the front here.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Hamdan Sechizevo from Uganda. Abavubi app, Fish. I applaud the opportunity given me by VIFA Consult. That's why I'm here. I want to divert a bit to the smartest city solution. How are you in Kenya handling the attitude, mindset of the authorities? Because they are not patient with innovators. They want to get a working solution maybe from China and just plant it here. Sometimes that's why even things fail. And I want to also tell the authorities that the developed countries have had a lot of testing, and that's why they're kind of having sustainability. But here, when you take a solution to the authorities, they say, that thing, let work. Okay? So how are we patient with the innovators so that things work out together? Like she said, it takes two to tango. Like we have the experience of the users and the experience of the authorities. So how do you balance that? Thank you very much.
Hello, so my name is Sharon Murugi. I am an undergrad at Catholic University of Eastern Africa in my final year doing computer science. So I have two questions and I'll direct it to Tyras. I hope I've pronounced your name right. Okay, so with regards to the workforce in pursuit of a smart city, what is the workforce looking like, especially since tech like AI has brought about innovations that clear out the blue-collar jobs. So where is the place of the guys who are doing blue-collar jobs in pursuit of a smart city? Because I think it will rid a lot of people of their jobs. The second question I had is directed to Rhoda. Because you mentioned that your first touch point on creating a smart city is being citizen focused. I think one thing we can mention, right now I'm doing a research project. It's on computer vision because I'm majoring in AI, but this was not my initial project. My initial one was with regards to in the transport system. Mr. Boniface mentioned the system that is in Singapore, where they're using the card to swipe. I've interacted with a similar one in Dubai when I attended a convention, and it was pretty easy and amazing. And I think Singapore is more advanced, right? From what I've had, the advancements in the Singapore story about Lee Kuan Yew, so I'm guessing Singapore is more advanced. So while I was doing this project, while I was researching about this project, about how bringing that system to Kenya, the results twice changed. First was, of course, I needed a grade. It became a bit complex. And then while doing the research, when it came to how efficient it will be, because I've liked your approach on it's supposed to be citizen focused, you're supposed to go to the users and collect all this data and find out if the system will be used. So a few challenges I encountered was things like the card, right? So the card might get lost, that's a minor issue, right? But it may get lost and then there's need to go and replace the card. Another problem I encountered is, in Kenya, the reason as to, I think also Mr. Boniface mentioned it, the reason as to why there's a mobility issue also in Nairobi is because there's no culture among Kenyans, sadly. Apart from, unless you're catching a flight, there's no culture of, I need to catch a bus at 8 a.m. or else it will leave me. You see? There's no culture of, there's a bus at 11 a.m. going to Nairobi CBD. So there's no culture. So because you can get late, catch a bus anytime, that's why there's a lot of traffic as well. So it will be really hard to put the no lengthen. There's no culture that. There's this bus, because in Dubai I experienced this. I was left by a bus at 9:30, as in the African timing. It was at 9:30, I was left by a bus I had to wait for an hour and 30 to 11. All right? So I took my African habit to Dubai, sadly. And then the other challenge that I faced in doing the research is, I think I've already mentioned it, the lack of culture. So on to my question, what have you done or are intending to do, also with the projects that you've mentioned, to create awareness on real-time usage of the smart system, and measures to make sure that it is used across Nairobi by the Nairobians? So if maybe it's creating awareness on the system, or like how are you going to push people to actually use these? Oh yeah, I remember. The final challenge that I faced is there are a lot of poorly serviced vehicles on our roads. That is why drivers and matatu operators have to pay bribes to police officers so that they can access certain roads. So if you introduce a cashless system, the reason why the matatu operators refuse them is because they know their cars are not well serviced. So they'll be like, hey, we don't want M-Pesa, can you send me cash? And then you also, I think, Rodo, you also mentioned, I've experienced where if you have 1,000 bob, imeshikana, you cannot sleep on there. You can just not afford to sleep because utakuwa unaangalia, alafu akatoka. The conductor left with my money. So yeah, I think that was it. So how are you creating awareness for these systems to be used, especially with regards to mobility? That's it. Thank you.
Wow, how do you follow that? That's good. So the questions are, and maybe we can just go through the panelists. There was one specifically to Tyrus, but how to ensure inclusivity, particularly in areas of mobility for persons with disabilities, particularly. And then, more importantly, I think this is for everybody, would you really rather work with a Chinese company or a local company, and how to be patient if they haven't tried it out before? And then the question to Tyrus is, how are you considering, I guess, the labour issues of AI and the workforce, a difficult one always? And then how are you going to create awareness? I know the governor has 2 million followers on Twitter, so probably it's not that hard. But how will you go about creating awareness for the digital services you have in Nairobi? So we start maybe with Boniface at the end, and we'll work the way back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start from where the gentleman was, about what we are doing for inclusivity. First, I would like to tell you that in our laws, we have vehicle specifications. What do I mean? When you are buying a vehicle as an operator, it is a requirement that it should be in a position to accommodate even people with disability without necessarily telling them to get off maybe their wheelchair or having to assist them by pulling them up and putting them into that vehicle. The first requirement is that the vehicle is supposed to have a lift. If it does not have a lift, it's supposed to have something called a ramp that is supposed to assist that person, go through, and then get into that vehicle. Number two, we are in the process of revising what we call transport regulations as a result of an act that was passed by the county assembly of Nairobi. It's called the Nairobi Transport Act 2020. Under that act, you are supposed, if you have a 33-seater, you are supposed to reserve at least 2 seats for people with disability. Specified seats, not just ordinary seats. Seats that will accommodate their needs. If the capacity goes higher, the number of seats is also supposed to, maybe 3, go higher like that. So in due course, once we start implementing those regulations under that act, they will also help us. And I also encourage you as I finish, if you have solutions, especially about mobility, being the person who is sitting there, I encourage you to have a discussion with me. You can pick my number, I can pick yours. In case there is any other person who has a good proposal about mobility solutions, we can begin discussions, because I believe one purpose of these discussions are not just to discuss and then go home. It's to discuss and see whether we can come up with solutions in the process, isn't it? So in case you have such, please feel free to talk to me, because I will not know you when you are seated, but you will know yourself, because I'm sure each one of us is an innovator. Let me go to the lady in yellow. She was talking about transport in general. And I agree with you. One thing I noticed, the difference between our transport and the transport in developed countries like Singapore, UK, etc., is when we are here, if you want to take a bus to town, you just get to the stage and wait for the next bus that will come, that you do not know whether it will come after 30 minutes, after 1 hour, after 2 hours. So technology will help us have what we call timed transport. That you know, at 10:15, vehicle number KBS is supposed to be here. At 10:20, it's supposed to be in the next destination. That way, it will help us organize ourselves. Number two, technology will help us have distance-based payment. What do I mean by distance-based payment? You see, in Kenya, it's a very funny country. I'm referring to Kenya because I don't know so much about other countries. In Kenya, transport is not the money that you pay for your transport is not dependent on your distance. It is dependent on other factor. Is there traffic? Has it rained? Especially in our CBD. If fare was 100 shillings, and then they see a drop of rain, most likely fare doubles up. So technology will help us, because when we zone it in terms of distance, it will not matter whether it's raining, whether there's traffic. What will matter is you are moving from Nairobi to Kawangware or Nairobi to Mweki, etc. Another thing that technology will help with is reliability. There's a day this week I decided to use public transport. I use a lot of public transport, especially because I sit in mobility, to get a first-hand touch and experience of what our people go through. I boarded that bus in Kasarani, around Kasarani police station, and it was around 7 there. We came, and then on reaching Thika Superhighway, they realized there's a lot of traffic. They diverted, I think, to Babadogo, went through Madare, went through Isili, came through Karioko, then Lower CBD. By the time I was getting to my destination, I was wondering how these people told us to board this bus because we are going to town. How did these people know that I was not going to town? I was not going to Pangani. I was not going to Muthaiga. I must have strictly been going to the CBD. So those are some of the challenges. And through our regulations, we've now stipulated that if you are following a certain route and you break that route, maybe you're supposed to move from Kasarani, you go through Thika Road, you go to town, you go to Westlands. You are not supposed to divert from your route, because it's called contravention of your route, which will be an offense with an enhanced fine. Number 4, and lastly, I also realized that even when we blame technology and all that, our culture also needs to change. There need to be a culture change. Because yesterday I was in a terminus called the Railways Terminus. You see, people, especially matatu operators, are blocking each other, such that if this is the exit, you find vehicles lined from the door up to here. So if you have 50 vehicles, for the 50th vehicle to leave, these other 49 must exit. and it's a big road. I was asking them, this road has 2 lanes. Can't you even, as human beings, animals are sometimes organized better than us. Can't you just use 1 lane to queue your vehicles, and then you leave this one free, so that if the 30th person wants to leave, he will not wait for the 29 to leave, he will just use the exit. But the explanations I got there is a story for another day. So we need to change our culture. However, even as I say we need to change our culture, I also realize even in those developed countries like UK and Singapore, it is not that people are very cultured. It is, I realized the technology has also made them cultured. I was going through the streets of Singapore for like 2 hours. You could not find even a police officer. So I was wondering, how are these people this organized? Then I realized there are cameras all over. Yeah. So when you break the law, from here before the next stop, you have a police vehicle stopping you, telling you to stop. Is this you? You cannot deny because they have video, they have evidence. So technology, again, will help us to be more cultured than the way we are. So I think I agree with you, but if you go round and round and round, you realize our final solution is technology. Thank you.
Excellent. And even in those developed countries, I happen to know the person who designed the initial system for transport for London. So this is all the barriers and the underground, even what has evolved now into this tap and go on the buses. And he was the Chief Information Officer for London. Oh, and he's Kenyan, by the way. But he's now back here. He's doing some other business. But you know, that London system was designed by a Kenyan. So.
In fact, for avoidance of doubts and for us to demonstrate that we want Nairobi to work, that person who made London work is now an advisor in the county government of Nairobi. So it's just a matter of time before we also get there. I know it's a long journey, but it's doable.
Excellent. Yes, so Rhoda, the questions from the audience, I think particularly quite a lot around customer stuff, so yeah.
Yeah, quite a number of questions actually. I can begin with the issue of inclusivity. And in my presentation, I actually spoke about this. And I said, and we all know that many times public interventions fail because they fail to include the people. So our research approach is one that includes everyone. Remember I mentioned about speaking, and when I talk about research, I'm not talking about town hall meetings or barazas. Those are good, but we take it a step further. We go and speak to that worker at the land's office. We spend 30 minutes with him or her. We understand their experience, what their goals are or what their dream is for that role that they fulfill for the county, the problems that they encounter, and even the potential solutions that they have in mind. And a lot of times, solutions tend to leave out what we call extreme cases. Most solutions are designed for the average people. So our research approach is one that caters to those extreme cases. So in coming up with the solution for Nairobi, for example, the platform that I mentioned, that was a platform that was centered around smartphones or smart devices. But not necessarily every citizen of Nairobi will have a smart device, right? Yet we still need to design solutions for that citizen. Because again, in service design, we don't leave anyone behind. Again, the matter of communication. How do people communicate with their city? Because again, the city may not be able to know every single problem in every single mtaa in the county. But if the citizens are communicating to the city and the city is responsive, then again that inclusivity comes through. I think the gentleman also asked something about testing the solutions. which again is another reason why a lot of these public interventions fail. Benchmarking is great, but there's again that need to localize and to really contextualize these solutions. And the best way to find out if a solution is workable or if it fits the problem is through testing. And in Marathon, that is something that we do with all our projects. Let me move to, we call her the lady in the yellow jacket. I'll respond to 3 issues that you raised. Actually 2. The first one is around the culture. You said in Kenya we have no culture of timeliness. We just show up at the bus stop 2 hours before the time we need to be in town. We are providing for 20 minutes to wait for the bus, 1 hour for it to take us through Eastleigh and everything, get to Globe, and have 20 minutes to walk to where we need to go. But the truth is, there's our discipline called behavior design, which we also apply in our work. We have learned through research, people can change their behavior. Our brains are capable of change. And like Boniface said, it's not that these people in these developed countries are very cultured. It's just that the systems that they engage with or the technology that is in place to provide their services has molded them to become more cultured. If a bus in a station in London or New York comes at 7:29 a.m. and you're not at that station at 7:29 a.m., you will miss that bus. And you have to wait for the next one, which is maybe at 8:43. For some reason, they always have weird timings. So it's not that those people are super cultured. It's not that we're not cultured. It's that we don't have systems that almost, can I use the word force us to be cultured. Again, the issue of corruption, like, I know I can overlap. I'm in a hurry. I can overlap, and if I come across a policeman, I'll just talk to him nicely. I guess it's because of the technology or lack of it that allows us to have that kind of behavior. If our processes were as streamlined as some of these countries that my panelists have spoken about, whereby you don't even need to come in contact with a policeman. And I know we are trying that method with the smart license, but I think we're still a long way to go. So these are we have to have in place systems and technologies that cause that behavior change. And it's not even necessarily, behavior change is great, but it's not necessarily always the solution. We also need to customize for our behaviors. We have a rich culture in Kenya, and again, we go on benchmarking trips all over the world, and we come and we see those amazing things. We come and implement them here, and they don't always work out. And the reason for this, again, is because these solutions don't fit our context. And the solution goes again to research. Yes, we have seen the subway system in New York or the transit system in London, and we have this dream that Nairobi can become such a city. But we have to contextualize those solutions. For example, if we start digging tunnels in Nairobi, ... So again, there's that need to not necessarily change people's behavior, but to design for the behavior that we already have. Because we are unique, and we should design for our uniqueness. I think I wouldn't want to go to Jomo Kenyatta Airport and feel like I'm in Singapore or Qatar. I want to feel this is Nairobi. When I'm in New York, I want to know I'm in New York. When I'm in Nairobi, I want to see and feel that I'm in Nairobi. So there's that need to customize to our behavior and even to our culture, the good aspects of our culture. The last issue I'll address is about creating awareness. And I would like to say that I think creating awareness is a late stage. If we go out there and create solutions, launch them, and then create awareness, I think we've missed the ball. I think the solution lies in involving people. Again, that's inclusivity, getting buy-in from people. We tend to reverse engineer solutions in our part of the world. We come and launch a solution and then we ask people how their experience is, and then we go and retrofit or do repairs, bandaging. But in our approach, which is the right approach to coming up with solutions, you start with the people, speak to everyone, understand their goals, the vision they have for their city. You can agree with me, solutions for Nairobi lie with Nairobians. They're not out there. They're right here with us in this room, out there in the streets. Those makangas that are speaking to us rudely and blocking each other and everything, they know what their city needs. It's only that the current context doesn't allow for those great solutions to come through. So I would say before we start to create awareness, let's first get buy-in. Let's talk to people, all people involved, one-on-one conversations. Speak to that makanga, have 20 minutes with him, ask him about, it can be as general as his life goals, why he chose that job, what he loves about it. You know, it sounds simple because it is. So really get that buy-in. Group, you know, understand what the problem is. Sometimes people will tell you, A is our problem, but reality is the problem is probably something else. Because, you know, we're very good at complaining, and the complaints that we give usually tend not to be the issue itself. It's like when you go to a doctor and you tell them you have a headache and you're feeling dizzy, you think your illness is the headache, and then the doctor tells you you actually have malaria. So we really need to get that citizen buy-in, stakeholder buy-in, understand the problem, involve the citizens, not just in discovering the problem, but even in designing it. Ask people, what would you want to see in Nairobi? And once we design those solutions, again, test them. If we come up with the system that Boniface was mentioning, finding an innovative way of bringing in the public PSVs to CBD. But it's interesting to note that in Kenya, we are kicking out PSVs from CBD and keeping the private vehicles, whereas in most of those big cities that we emulate, it's the opposite. It's the PSVs that are in the cities and the private cars, because it makes sense. A PSV will bring in maybe 40 people. If I'm driving in my car, I'm probably alone, right? So, so again, just involving the citizens, even in the testing of the solution. And then, if you involve people, they already know about it. They were involved from the problem discovery, they were involved in design. You find you don't even need to create any awareness, if at all. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I think anything to motivate, there's only two motivational tools I know, right? They're the stick and the carrot. And you've talked about in Singapore, using technology to enforce the rules is very important. And I think then how to incentivize people, what are the carrots? And I think a bit about, there was a time Michael Joseph was interviewed by Richard Quest, and he was talking about the early days of M-Pesa on CNN, and he was saying how he really pushed his team to get to 1 million users of M-Pesa so that it would become viral. When there was 1 million people using it, there becomes a Me Tooism, or everyone's using it, let me do it too. So that is how he made a behavioral change of a national level. And Safari, well, his entire team, but the Safaricom and M-Pesa doing that. And even now, even more recently, when the expressway opened, I was, let's say I'm an early adopter of the ETC. I went and got one before the thing opened, before I even ventured on that road. But of course, everybody would be queuing up on the left for long, and we'd be sailing past. But these people are seeing all these people flying past them, and now you come off the expressway, there's very few people using the pay on the MTC, everybody's using the ETC, so making it more attractive and actually a better experience to be in that lane and not that lane. For no extra money, right? It's the same, it's actually even cheaper, there's a discount. Cecilia, as you answer any of the questions there, I actually had a thought, because you talked in your presentation about having the cadastral database from Ministry of Lands, and also hearing, I forget her name, but Marigi, the young lady in yellow, she's doing research in university around computer vision. So is there a way that Lands can collaborate with researchers in university, use their projects and their research objectives with some of the data and the maps and things that you have? Was my thought, but as you answer any of the other questions that are there.
Okay, thank you. I think we are in the process of trying to embrace the researches going on in the university and bringing even the interns and some students to support us in that. But as stated when I was doing my presentation, we are only 10 months old, and even when we want to do that, we have to bring out on issue of budget. Because even when we bring the researchers on, you need the budget aspect. And we want actually to bring on board the researchers from JKUAT University, because they deal more on very, very extended GIS, and Kimathi University and NAIROBI University. We are also planning to bring on board the students from Tuke University to support us in land and administration, because you realize most of the litigations that come, it is due to the way we are managing the land aspect. And we want experts in that. We are sure we know and we believe there are students who can support in that, and they can also do like hypothesis paper on how we are doing things and advise us on the way forward. So we are planning to do that. It's only that we are waiting. The year is just very fresh because it's just in August.
Yeah, good point. I'm glad you mentioned those. Even, I hire GIS engineers for doing work all over Africa, and again, we're looking at those universities you mentioned. I think they're turning out excellence in these areas. I'm going to actually give Tyrus the last word, but so we come to Bashir to answer any questions before we give Tyrus the last word on the panel. So yeah.
So I have some couple of responses. Democracy, government for the people, by the people, of the people. But in the reverse way, people for the government, by the people, of the people. This brings us to the issue of civic engagement, where we involve the citizen in the governance itself. Of course, as it is the responsibility of the government to take care of the citizens, it is also the responsibility of the citizens to help take care of the government and themselves. This is addressing a question whereby citizens can be involved directly in addressing the problem or reporting the problems as they unfold. But as in how the government may come through, part of the e-government strategy, you can provide a kind of a reporting platform that they can be able to report, let's say somebody said an issue of a corruption or bribing, let's say the policeman, for example, on the street, for example. Just look at his shirt, take an offline picture of him, either him knowing, not knowing, keep it, whenever you get internet access, upload and send it through, and you're good. If you don't have the application, it can just be a QR code spread across different billboards within the city. Scan the QR code, for example. If it's a public vehicle, scan the QR code, for example, get access to the platform, just fill in information, capture, send. And let the authorities also be aware that there shouldn't be any violation for any reporting. So just because I took a camera and I capture a violation that has been made, you don't have to. Because there was a protest in France, I think 2 years back, that there was a violation on the citizen, actually, just because he brought his phone to capture. There were no protests, but it was registered on a peaceful demonstration like that. And because of that, I think the city of Paris erupted down to Marseille, to Lyon. it erupted actually with a lot of violence because a single citizen has been denied his right just for bringing his phone to capture what he seems as is all right and sending to the public authority. So that's one. Also, the use of the public cameras is there already, but in the era of computer vision, AI entirely, you can be able to link that particular images, analyze them, know the faces. I've seen it in the airport already. As you're coming through, our faces have been scanned. If you're familiar with the computer vision very well, you'll see the rectangle scanning your face and trying to link it with the crime database, with the immigration database, and anything. You wouldn't know, but that's what is happening initially behind the scene, for example. Like for the authorities, there can be a private database linked to that particular cameras, and computer vision can help to just capture the picture, link through. So camera is there, as in looking at you from certain proximity, from certain range. It can be a hyperspectral camera and capture nearly anything. Some can have the ability to handle a real-time analysis and link to the right and regulatory body to handle the stuff, while some can be post-processed, like at the end of the day, it can be on a weekly basis for that actually. Regarding to the lead in the yellow, that AI is taking jobs. Of course, it is, but that's the future. You can't compare Africa with Britain. You can't compare Africa with America, Europe. Some are colonizers, but just a recent case study is that of the USA, for example, America. America is barely 300 years old. How old is Kenya as an independent country?
16.
How old is Nigeria? We have the resources actually. Forget about the colonialism or how a book is said and how our so-called colonial masters decolonize us actually. I have to say that actually. But look at it in the picture of how can we find a way forward. That's it. Forget about it. Use the little that we have, the resources that we have, and at the pace that we won't compare ourselves with the likes of the USA, with the likes of other advanced countries. But the challenge for us is places like UAE, Qatar, that are just younger than us, that have gotten a lot of their resources from us, actually. Agricultural, natural resources must have advanced. I think that's a challenge for the government of the day. And it involves you. As Mr. Boniface has said, that the guy that you just mentioned has been invited to be an advisor in the current government. That's the way it's supposed to be done, for example. The age is just a number, it doesn't matter. It's the potential that matters. Once he has the qualities and he agrees to contribute, then invite him at least. He can even work remotely and he can be able to contribute more. With reference to what we're doing actually at Flow is we felt like access to critical data, life-saving data is a basic human right. So that's why we're giving out access to some of our services for free, actually. But if you are asking us how can we be sustainable since we're giving our B2C for free actually? It's not quite innovative, it can be sustainable for a number of years, and a lot of investors dislike that. Yes, of course, but there is innovation behind. So, if you're familiar with blockchain, behind the scene, we are mining crypto. It's a green bond also, a crypto actually. So whatever we mine, we give out incentives directly to those particular citizens that having that particular application of ours, freely getting our services. We get the most of it, let's say 95%, but at least 5%. For any digital currency, for example, that you may think of, Shiba, for example, Worldcoin, I've seen it's part of the sponsors. Yeah, Worldcoin, for example. Let's say if we mine Worldcoin, for example, and just give you a fraction of it, 5%, and it continues for a month. If you convert that into a fiat currency, a current currency that you have as in Kenyan shilling, for example, it's something to sustain you. So we just have to keep innovating. One more thing about the AI taking jobs is a transition from what we are into a much more data-driven world. AI cannot work without data. It's a foil. Mm-hmm. So I felt it's the responsibility of the government, the private sector, the hubs that we have here, to introduce AI into the curriculum. There are a lot of curriculums that have been changed in Nigeria currently, in Lagos State, and thank God CC Hub is here, as IHOP, Nairobi here. One of the programs they do is catch them young. They invite younger generations from 9 to 10, and they introduce them to STEM and the application of STEM. And that's where AI can come through, and how can be able to use AI into robotics, inculcate AI into our daily lives, and teach them first class how AI is doing the job. Even they can just give them the code. I will commend the CEO of Gearbox. When we paid a visit to him just 2 days ago here. And he said that as in ChatGPT is really helping them. So they don't deny their students or their interns access to ChatGPT, no. Because at the end of the day, when you grab the code, you paste it into the IDE for either the Arduino or Raspberry Pi, you have to like make sure it is working. But what you're going to present to them is a pure IoT solution or a pure robot as in performing the task, because that's the final output they need. So we can't just say that generative AI is polluting the landscape. No, it's not actually. It has also a lot of benefit that it can be used to solve the problem. One more thing to Cecilia's question regarding that you asked her, collaboration between LAN and research and academia actually. Yeah, it can be done. After you must have built you've streamlined your LAN administration, basically using GIS, cadastral, valuation, and the rest, for example, into a single e-government platform, then you can provide a kind of an open data access. Yeah, for the school. They don't have to be in contact with you. Like we have one, that's what we are using currently for our own academia research, giving them access to data for free. It's there, but the data is categorized and it has been cleaned already, as in to suit what you need, for example. And even if you want to like as in be authoritative, the data can be there, and there can be also a SaaS-based GIS platform whereby they don't need to have a physical GIS lab, for example. They just need a mobile device, a tablet or a laptop, for example. Access there, bring the data into the map, and you handle it, for example. As you saying earlier, that as in 2 submarine cables have been cut off as in along the West African coast, something like that. Yeah, like during our visit to him, I showed him as in the overlay of all the submarine cables that are true, and thinking of how to provide a kind of an early warning to the submarine cables, for example. So the platform can allow you to bring in your own data. We call it BYOD. Bring your own data into it. It could be any type of data. Once it is in CSV, JSON, GeoJSON, whatever format that you think of, that's the global standard. You can be able to bring it. Open OGC, that's Open Geospatial Consortium compatible, and it can be interoperable. It can just be brought in. There are numbers of ways that this can be done actually, and we just can't bring somebody's model out there to fit in Kenya. But it can serve as an inspiration. If you really want to do that, adopt the model, do it in a more Kenyan way, in a more African way, in a more African context, African solution for African problems. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I like this thing about AI needs data. It's really important, but also in addition to that, AI is also going to need computers. And we have in Kenya, we have a lot of data centers, and I have one of the biggest ones. But what I can say is that we have relatively little in powerful computers in Kenya. Amazon are launching AWS and Edge Zone, which is going to be very important. But in terms of the real, we've got a lot of data storage in those data centers, but in terms of the real compute power, the GPUs, the CPUs, we're going to need to invest more as a country, as a continent in that. I'm going to come to Taras for the last word. You can pick any questions, but I think you've had lots of ideas. I think you've probably got a lot of responsibility. So my question actually is, how can we help?
Thanks a lot. Before I come to how we want you to contribute and help us, let me maybe take the few questions that have been asked from. And first of all, I know Boniface was working to actually give a rejoinder to this about kicking out PSVs. Maybe I want to correct that. We are actually not doing that. We are giving PSVs better access. What we are doing is that you don't need them to stop at one place for you to go there. If you're going to Kikuyu and you work in Kenyatta Avenue, you just need to know which route passes there, going to Kikuyu, isn't it? If you're working in Tomboya and you want to go to Kikuyu again, there's another route. There's a route that can start from, say, Maradaima and pass through Kenyatta Avenue and go to Kikuyu.
There is one that can come from Kibra and is going to Kikuyu instead of using the bypass and just comes and takes you in Tom Mboya. So we are actually providing better service whereby you can, it's almost as seamless as how you can just call an Uber from where you are. To one of the hardest questions that was asked here about the mindset of authorities in taking ready solutions. Very tough. You know, when the governor came in, one of the first things is, in reality, in a political environment, like you have a 5-year term, you have approximately 36 months to work before campaigns actually kick in. So it is usually quite a difficult balancing act, because you actually want that solution that is going to come in and kick immediately. And of course that's a problem for a growing nation. And this is why specifically we now have the startups and digital economy sector, so that there we can incubate and we can get better visibility of what is happening and the innovators that are within the ecosystem, and seeing how some of them, sometimes I say you don't have to have the whole solution. We may not even be able to get you in to do the whole solution, but there are certain parts of that solution that you're doing well and better than even the more refined persons. I'll give you an example. I know of a company that is doing very well in digitizing health records. That company may not be able to do the whole of the health information management system for the county, but it has a certain expertise that even in the bigger organizations have not really even taken care of that. So one of those things that we are doing is, in those ecosystems, even if you don't get the whole, you actually contribute to part of making that ecosystem. So that is one thing. I know that mindset is a big problem, and that is one way that we are trying to address, looking at what is it that you're actually doing very well for us to support. The second thing is about the workforce from a student from Catholic University. The reality of technology is that in most cases, technology does not get people out of jobs. Technology creates better jobs for people. The only thing that we have to be careful about is to ensure that we again do not leave a whole generation or a whole section of the workforce behind when we are doing this. And that's why, of course, people are anxious. When you hear technology is taking over, you're quite anxious that you're going to lose your job. Some people are actually in very powerful positions, and they can actually provide quite a lot of resistance towards digitization, because that person is looking at, now, I'm the expert in this area. You people are saying that this information will now be available to everyone. So it becomes a problem. But then, what you do is that we walk the journey. We upskill the people who are in those jobs. For example, today, a simple job is the job of a secretary. Before then, what was your requirement? You need to be able to do shorthand. Then you needed to use typewriter. Today, you need to use a computer. Or when I'm dealing with my secretary, we need to be able to sync our calendars and all that. So what do? You upskill that person. Most of these technologies, even these people who are in those jobs, they're already using part of these technologies in their day-to-day lives. So it's all about now actually packaging that technology for this person to acquire that skill. In our county, we actually have a whole directorate. It is actually under Victor, a directorate of on capacity building and e-learning, so that all our employees over and over, we can be able to upskill them. Right now, as we speak, we are ensuring that within the next few years, all our employees are ICDL certified for them to be able to actually work with the technologies that we have. For example, when we talk about maybe even another area, such as matatus. You know these persons who are managers in the matatu stages? what is going to happen is that before you are able to book your own matatu, you can be able to go there. That person is skilled, they have a tablet, and can be able to actually book a matatu for you. So you don't replace that person, but you upskill them. And so that is how we are going to ensure that the blue-collar jobs are just going to be more attractive. Because remember, a person with such skills, you're not going to pay them the same amount, isn't it? That person's salary actually upgrades. There was something that she mentioned about the culture in Kenya about poorly serviced vehicles. And I think we are already getting there. Right now, by the way, if you're using the road, don't speed. NTSA have already activated those cameras properly. I don't know whether any of you have gotten any tickets. I know NTSA have already started doing a pilot on the road. So especially when you have these new plates, you just pass a camera, it's just going to pick you and they're going to bill you that fine. You don't actually need the police officers on that road. They are going to bill you. And so for some of these, for example, because matatu industry, well privatized, is also a regulated market. It's so easy. We are going to ensure that aspects such as servicing, again, aspects such as servicing of vehicles are done and certifications given on the system. So in a way, you also formalize areas that they actually go to do those services. You certify them to ensure that you're getting the right information from them, so that they are not afraid that because someone was joking and saying, if we go cashless, we have to be giving the drivers and the touts and the conductors petty cash so that they can use it on the road. We don't need that. It is possible for us to eliminate some of these issues that make these other human interference come in. To the question of how are you innovators and people like Liquid Telecom, you told me it's no longer Liquid Telecom.
Liquid Intelligent Technologies.
Liquid Intelligent Technologies. How are they going to come in and participate in this? First of all, we are trying as much as possible, and we will be doing this more to ensure that we share our roadmap, to ensure that different persons, innovators, partners who can actually contribute through infrastructure, understand our roadmap and can come in and fit within that roadmap. This information is public. In fact, if you go to our website, the Nairobi City County website, the CIDP is there. What Boniface is talking about doing is captured in the CIDP. What Cecilia is talking about doing is captured in the CIDP. And that is a dream that we would want all of you to come in and assist us in. In terms of course, just not the infrastructure, helping us also, once we identify these innovators, helping us also get them in front of venture capitalists and such other persons who are going to be able to make it easy on our side for us to absorb their technologies. And basically, also, we are, in fact, there is a directorate again in Nairobi City County that His Excellency the Governor created, called the Directorate of PPPs, so public-private partnerships, which is going to streamline any aspects around PPPs, because we realize that for us to fast-track this, we will need that. And so again, you can come in there and propose ways that we can do a PPP and such. So we are also going to ensure that we give as much as possible platforms for people to come, and some of these things you only need us to give you the platform for you to innovate and sell to the other persons. If you are innovating around informal traders, we will try as much as possible to give you visibility for that, so that you can actually reach as many as possible of the informal traders within our databases. And so, yeah, in all those levels, we will want to walk the journey with Kenyans and Nairobians in particular. Thank you.
And one more thing regarding the inclusivity that the fellow over there talked about. Some of the tags are high-performance tags that we don't have the capacity in Africa, only a few. So sometimes it's not just by will, by choice, by power that the expatriates are coming through. Sometimes coming even into the continent is a favor. Currently, you may still find a service provider in Niger, if you are still familiar with what is happening among AU, ECOWAS, and Niger Republic regarding the coup. They're still there, providing mobile connectivity, for example. For your fiber to pass through Central Africa and the rest, terrestrial fiber as an inland is something else, for example. So if there is a direct competition in Africa that is of indigenous background that can be able to provide exactly as qualitative services as that particular partner, that particular competition, then I believe the country will have preferred to provide the services to him, because I believe it's going to be low cost, one. Secondly, he has a clear sense of belonging and responsibility that I am doing this for my own country, so I'm contributing my own quota. Even if I cut off the price, at least my footprint is there for the sake of the next project, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm really hearing, in summary, I'm hearing when it comes to county, go and look at the county integrated development plan. This is where everything that is that's been formulated to meet the governance objectives will be. We have different options for financing. We have public-private partnerships, a whole directorate within Nairobi. We have development partners and grants and other things. We have banks. We have venture capital. We have in insurance. We have ways to finance this together. I'm hearing that Boniface says talk to him afterwards if you're in mobility. Really, I think it's a case to get this done. I want to thank all the panelists. I was excited about this panel before, but I think the conversation today has surpassed my expectations, so it's been really great. Thank you all, and for all your contributions and great insights. And thank you to Victor for putting such a panel together. I know it's on him to take the conversation forward and keep the connection going between our innovators and this team and the wider team, and not forgetting then from the rest of the continent, as well as solutions we're making locally. We can collaborate with other countries in Africa, both to see what they're doing and how we can, when we do our benchmarking trips, think about going to these places. And also, there'll be future markets for us. If we can solve problems for Nairobi, we can solve them for Dar es Salaam, so we can export our solutions later. Thank you very much, everybody, and we're giving it to a close.